But I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
It was a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1,
self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. Whoa, settle down, Mike, settle down. Feels like it's been a week. What's going on? I've got a line. There's a line I'm supposed to remember and I can't remember it. So I'll just say, what's up, guys? Happy Tuesday. I hope everybody had a nice Memorial Day weekend. And for those of you internationals that don't know, it was a holiday here on Monday to remember our past veterans. And there we go. So I took the day off yesterday and we're back. So anyway, this is the show where we get together and talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. You know what those things are? Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. We do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so you take a day off and everything goes to hell. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific, and that's all the things we do. It's not really all the things we do. You have to sum it up because there's so many things we talk about because, of course, having a troubled mind doesn't mean having a troubled mind just about politics or just about, I don't know, cosmic musings or, I don't know, an alien invasion. It doesn't really mean having a troubled mind about only those things. What about also those things? I think that needs to be a shirt. Also, comma, troubled minds. Because why not? All the other things, right? There's so many things in this world. They're amazing. Please don't get me wrong. I always talk about this, that this is a glass half full show, meaning that I'm not a doom preacher. I'm not a doom monger. I'm not here talking about things that are terrifying to make people afraid. I think that we should be the opposite. I think we should be unafraid. And I think we should stare these problems or these, let's call them challenges, because that's the new political term when you can't say we got problems here because then you're a negative a-hole and you just, you're not allowed at the meeting and they kick you out and you can't, you got to say things and frame them just so. You got to frame it just so. So let's say as life and people in general, you look around the world, there's war and there's famine and there's pestilence and there's all these things, right? But you got to say, you got to frame it appropriately or else you're the problem, right? So let's frame this appropriately as we begin tonight and say that humanity has some challenges. And I think personally we should be able to stare those challenges in the eye, unafraid, and talk about them and get ideas from regular people, because like I always say, this show is our show. It's I literally created this show with the idea of let's talk to regular people about things that don't get enough airtime and don't get enough anything, right? They just sweep this stuff under the rug and they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. This is fine. There's nothing to see here, guys. There's no problems with any of this stuff. So anyway, that's what's up, right? There's my long-winded way of saying we do this live. This show is live to include you, of course, because it is a conversation. It's a two-way conversation. My job is I bring something to talk about and some questions. Your job is, you kick back and you listen and you think about these things and you call me and we talk. And it's as simple as that, right? It's a very, very easy premise. So as we do this, like I said, we are doing this live to include you, and we're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. And of course, we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM and taking your calls. If you want to be part of the show tonight, 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. You can also go to troubledminds.org. That's the official website. And of course, there's a Discord link there, and you can be on the show that way as well with Discord. Discord is a chat client. It's a voice client. It's completely free if you have an internet connection, and it's the new way that people are communicating. Well, one of the new ways. There's a whole lot of new ways, but it's one of my favorites because it's a pretty robust program. Like I said, it's free. You can speak internationally. It's like an old school chat room. You can type like the old AOL days. You can share videos or links or you name it, photographs, or you can even hop in the chat and talk to people like we're doing right now, like on a telephone call. It's pretty impressive, or live stream or anything else. It's a fantastic program. Troubled Minds, me myself, and Troubled Minds is not sponsored by Discord. It's just a great program. That's that. So please also join the Fringe Discord at fringe.fm/chat. Like I said, I'm watching all the chat in all the places. That includes, again, Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter. And of course the Fringe FM. So please join the Fringe Discord and please keep the chat up, because I try and incorporate your ideas into the show as we go. This is completely unscripted. It's loosely prepared and hip shoot on the way, because of course I don't mind if we derail a little bit here, because that's how conversations actually happen. You start to talk about things and you sort of derail to one thing or another, right? I'm guilty of it all the time, because if you keep conversations sort of in a pocket of only, right, you can't go outside of those things. Many things are related to other things, and so of course you can do that here, and that's why we've always done it in this format. So what's up? We got reverb or something? Is something going on? Can anybody else confirm or deny that we have an issue here? Maybe I gotta turn that down. That could be it. I'll turn up my noise gate, make sure everything's fine. Got some reverb. Okay, all right. So anyway, there we go. 702-957-1037 at fringe.fm/chat. Checking it out. What's up, Cubes? Got reverb. All right, I'm checking it out. See, in the chat, like I said, in the chat. I'm reading the chat. Okay, so here we go. This is what's on my mind tonight as we begin, right? There's this thing called CRISPR. You guys heard of CRISPR? You've probably heard of CRISPR, right? It's one of those things that it gets a lot of press. It gets a lot of very, very good press, by the way. Like the next miracle maker, right? The next CRISPR breakthrough is going to, I don't know, cure blindness or cure deafness, or right, all of the above. It's going to do all the things. It's going to just smash the vitamin D into the tomatoes, and it's going to make the potatoes more or less starchy, just perfectly the way we need them to be for science or consumption, right? And well, that's what's on my mind tonight. If you've never heard of CRISPR, right, and the miracles they associate with that actual thing, it might be that. Let's turn that down. I got there we go. How's that? Let me know if the reverb's better. Okay, so anyway, here we go. Let's get to this. Let's just go straight to this. This is from Gizmodo.com. And Gizmodo, right, is one of those sites that reports on stuff like this, because, well, thank goodness for that, because somebody needs to. But as always, right, open source, meaning that open source with your ideas and thoughts and us having a conversation, but also in that all of my sources that I talk about, you'll find them in the links down below. So please check that out, and you'll be able to read exactly what I'm reading here. This is from Gizmodo. Scientists CRISPR'd tomatoes to make them full of vitamin D. Yeah, that's right. Vitamin D. Right? These genetically modified tomatoes produce vitamin D when exposed to ultraviolet light. right? Okay, this is fine, right? This is fine. Here we go. This is straight from the article, straight from Gizmodo. And you'll see where I'm headed with this tonight in just a moment. The tomatoes of the future could help boost your levels of the sunshine vitamin. Researchers in the UK say they've developed genetically edited tomatoes that can produce high levels of vitamin D with just an hour of ultraviolet light exposure. These edited tomatoes would ideally help provide a rich and plant-based source of the essential nutrient, which is commonly lacking in much of the population. All right. Let's see. Would you like yours in a barrel, Mike? What? Anyway, I'm not sure what you mean. These edited tomatoes would ideally... Okay, just read that. The edited plant was created by researchers at the John Innes Centre in the UK. They used CRISPR technology. There's that word. That's what we're talking about tonight. CRISPR, C-R-I-S-P-R, and we'll get into exactly what that is. They used CRISPR technology to knock out an enzyme that limits the production of a compound naturally found in tomatoes called 7-dehydrocholesterol, 7-dehydrocholesterol, or of course, because we have to abbreviate these things and these words are huge, 7-DHC, or provitamin D3. Without the enzyme, the fruits and leaves of those tomatoes accumulated higher levels of 7-DHC. Okay, so this is where this starts, okay? And this doesn't sound very nefarious, does it? It's like, okay, we're gonna change the tomatoes and we're gonna make them better. Oh, let's see. From inside the barrel? Am I inside? What is going on here? Well, I got audio problems. I hate audio problems. Hold on one sec. Let's see if we can figure something out here. Broadcasting from inside of a barrel. Is it really that bad? So that's off. This should be fine. What's going on there? Test. I'm not sure why there's a problem. Oh, there. There's the problem. Sorry about that, guys. It's fixed. Okay, back to the CRISPR miracles. Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me sound this is all my fault. Thanks for letting me know. Otherwise, I would have sounded like a knucklehead the entire time. Okay, so this is the thing, right? Back to this. This is fine because what are we doing, right? We're gene editing tomatoes, okay? And then we're gene editing the tomatoes to really have an easier way to just pump vitamin D into them. You put them in some ultraviolet light for an hour, and everything's fixed. Everything's fine, audio-wise, but also with the tomatoes, right? They've got a super boost of vitamin D, and people start eating this stuff, and then what, right? It's fine. Everybody needs a little bit more vitamin D in their diet, right? I mean, it's what we get from the sun and all the rest of that. And thanks for letting me know. I couldn't figure out what was wrong, but well, now I know. Okay, so in any case, right, this is where we're at. This is where this begins, just with this idea that you can genetically modify something and make it better, right? Make it better, which is fine. I mean, that's fine, right? Is it? I guess that's fine. Everybody wants, some fantastic I can't say it, nutrients. See, I'm just laughing at myself here because of the audio. Look, I tell you what, you take one day off and everything's out of sync, but that's okay. That's all right. Yeah, okay, so that's what's on my mind tonight. Okay, so here's the questions. We got some questions as we go. The first question is this. Have you heard of CRISPR? Do you know what this is? We're going to talk about it in depth tonight of what it actually is, okay? From a doctor from Yale who actually is able to say, look, this is exactly what it is. This is exactly what CRISPR means and stands for. This is exactly why they use it and what they're using it for. And also what the dangers are. Because, yes, that's right. Despite all of the bad press, or all the good press that CRISPR gets, it doesn't get a ton of bad press, or at least if it does, it gets, again, pushed down the news cycles or not pushed into them. And that's, again, part of the whole, right, the whole brainwash cycle. They want us to believe particular things. So the first question is, have you heard of CRISPR? Number two, the second question tonight is, do you think CRISPR is a good idea? Do you think it's a good idea to not just, let's say, gene modify food, but also what about animals and what about also people? Okay, that's the next question. Do you think it's a good idea? Number three, what do you think some of the problems could be? Even though, again, it's billed as like the next miracle thing, like the individuals that created the CRISPR technology won a Nobel Peace Prize, right, in science. And so it's like, okay, well, this must be really, really good, right? Because everything you read, all the articles you can pull up, you type CRISPR and go search the news, and you'll find like just gushing article after gushing article about vitamin D in the tomatoes and curing blindness and all kinds of stuff, right? You'll find all kinds of amazing press, right? But also, per usual, per usual, right? There's always another side to this story. There's always another side to this. Okay, so we've got this guy. All right, I'm going to play a couple clips from this guy so you can get exactly the idea of what's going on. But those are the questions tonight, right? Do you know what CRISPR is? Do you think that we should be using it for, let's say, plants and animals, and and then also humans? And then on top of that, do you think that what could go wrong? And of course, what could go right? Do you think that I guess these conversations have to be both ways, don't they? Like I said, I'm not a doom preacher, but I do like to highlight the back end of things, meaning that the stuff that doesn't get a ton of things, it doesn't get pressed to the front of the news cycle, right? Like you guys, you know me, that's like I always say, I have no special powers here. I just watch the news cycles very closely. And again, it's not always about what's in the news cycle, it's about what they leave out of news cycles. And that's the thing right there. That's the thing that always gets me. It makes me go, okay, interesting. So if you see everything positive about CRISPR, for instance, but you don't see anything typically negative pressed to the front of these cycles, because they want to catch your attention, right? You would expect if there was gloom and doom associated with the CRISPR technology, that there would be, right? If it bleeds, it leads, right? If it's ugly, I mean, people dying in a flood or an earthquake or a fire, that's like the first thing they show, or a shooting, or you know what it is, right? The news cycle presses that stuff to the front. But then, of course, if it's something to do negative with science, you don't see that a lot, do you? It kind of gets pressed to the back of the news cycles or bumped down in the search engines. And surely that's an accident, right? Surely that's an accident. That's not what this is about. We don't try and hide things in this society. Things are free and open. And anyway, love to hear your thoughts. Those are the questions as we begin tonight. We're starting with vitamin D and tomatoes. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. And there we go. Let's listen to this individual. This guy goes by the name of, let's see, what is his name? Greg Licholai, PRA Health Services, and from Yale Insights. He did an interview here. Again, links down in the description below if you want to check it out. But this is him describing exactly what CRISPR is, okay? Listen to this.
CRISPR is this fascinating, powerful technology. It's got a very clunky name. It's called clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. Now, what does that mean? So the name actually refers to the way it interacts with DNA. And it's a way to manipulate DNA, to edit DNA in a way that previously is much more powerful than previous methods, much simpler, much cheaper, and the important part is it's exceptionally precise. So as you probably know, our book of life is made of DNA. DNA itself is many millions of base pairs, which is like a language. And within that language, there are certain regions which code for genes, and those genes are incredibly important because.
Okay, well, the genes are incredibly important, of course, because, well, they're genes. There are genes that make up our, right, who we are, what we're going to become, right? From birth to death, our genes play an important role in many areas, right? Including the ability for genes to sort of self-select, be able to turn themselves on, based on, let's say, a period of famine or, things like this. Our bodies are pretty robust in those terms, meaning that we're adaptable and we don't have to be, reborn in the sense that this lifetime we're just gonna you're gonna have to go hungry, everybody dies, right? No, people adapt. People are able to do these things. Humans are extremely resilient, and it is in part because of our genes, because of our genetic makeup, right? Because of our DNA and the way this all works together. Okay, I'm not a scientist. I just know human beings are amazing. That's what I know. Okay, bottom line, that's it. However, right, for every bit of amazing, we can also be just ugly and stupid and all the rest of that too. So you got to take both sides of that coin, right? Humanity can be a very good thing, but also, by the way, it cannot be. Okay, so that's the first thing, right? That's what CRISPR is. And we're talking about it tonight in the sense of, again, not just editing genes in terms of plants and animals. What about people? And of course, that's what's on my mind tonight. So there we go. So this is, again, an article from, let's see, this is from insights.yale.edu, okay? And you can find this guy, Greg Licholai, is a lecturer at Yale School of Management, and of course the Center for Digital Health, a Chief Medical Information Officer, PRA Health Sciences, whatever the heck that means. And this was all the way back in 2018 when he was talking about this stuff. So things have changed since then, of course, and things do change. And some of these articles we're talking about recently are going to make you scratch your head and go, wait, what? I thought this was supposed to be the miracle thing, right? I thought CRISPR was supposed to be the miracle thing. And of course, back in 2018, Yale, right? Of course, Yale, we're supposed to, higher education is the bomb diggity, right? We're supposed to be like, yeah. Hey, Yale. Yale says, this guy's from Yale, and he says, hey. But the headline is CRISPR worth the risk? And that's the question tonight. That's what's on my mind. Do you think it is worth the risk? Do you think both sides of that same coin, again, not with just humanity or anything else, but the idea that CRISPR technology changing genes of things to, let's say, get desired results out of particular organisms. And once you start to put it like that, because, well, it starts to sound scary, doesn't it? Because organisms could be fruits and vegetables, right? Organisms could be animals. Organisms could also be people. And we've talked about in the past the idea of the CRISPR babies. We shout out to Daryl in New York out there where we were talking about this last week or maybe a couple weeks ago about everybody having the same baby, right? Because if they're buying the same CRISPR kit or whatever to get the exact same baby, well, maybe that's exactly, maybe. So anyway, I don't know. Look, so this is the individual, this is the guy, and this is what he's talking about. Let's go to clip number 2. This is exactly one more thing real quick. He's got a lot to say about this because he's studied it. He's worked on this stuff. And listen to this. This is part 2 of, again, Greg Licolai from Yale on CRISPR action.
Those genes go on to make up everything about us. There's 40,000 proteins that become outputs of those genes, and they're involved in really our health, our well-being, and any defect in those genes becomes problematic in disease. So what was previously attempted with gene editing was to manipulate genetic information in blocks, basically in big pieces. It's kind of like trying to edit a book by only being able to rip out a page at a time and transfer a page at a time without really being able to control the actual words. The power of this technology, it literally comes down to the individual letters. So the precision is far better than anything that's happened before. And the excitement in the scientific community is being able to go in and very precisely make changes in DNA of actual genes that you can actually turn off bad genes, or you can potentially repair genes that have got mutations in them where the code is written incorrectly.
Ah, yes. Bad gene. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So we're going to take this CRISPR and we're going to perform some miracles. And we're going to go turn the genes on and turn the genes off and make you the perfect person. All right? Or, well, as close to perfect as we can get. But you see where this begins. You see where we start talking about tomatoes, or tomatoes as you prefer, and doing the CRISPR process, this CRISPR technology on tomatoes to improve how much vitamin D they have inside the vegetable, right? Like I said, it doesn't sound so nefarious. It doesn't sound so dangerous. It doesn't sound like it could be, I don't know, the plot of a sci-fi end of the world type movie. Oh, by the way, but it was. We'll get to that as well. So now look, like I said, 2 sides of a coin. Humanity, 2 sides of a coin. Technology, 2 sides of a coin. But tonight we're talking about CRISPR. We're talking about editing genes, and not just in tomatoes. We're going to get to potatoes, or potatoes as you prefer, mashed with some butter and gravy. Oh my. But also, what about CRISPRing, gene editing? That's right, people. And that's what's on my mind tonight. And I'd love to hear your thoughts because, of course, it's not a conversation without you. So if you want to be part of the show tonight and talk about CRISPR and maybe why some of this, let's say, maybe we should wait. Maybe we should pause. Maybe we should hesitate and ask why or why not. What do you think regarding CRISPR? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. Gene editing. Is this good, bad, somewhere in between? Love to hear your thoughts. Don't go anywhere. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Be right back. More CRISPR miracles and other gene editing oddities when we return. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. Tonight, we're taking your phone calls as we discuss this new technology called CRISPR. Sounds harmless, doesn't it? Sounds like frying some potatoes in some oil. CRISPR. But it's not like that at all. What do you know about this technology, and do you think we should be basically playing God with the flora and fauna of the world? 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037, and we'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. And there's a lot to this. It's complicated, okay? Like I said, per usual, everything we talk about should be complicated because, again, I always say this too, and this is a lesson, and not just for myself, I think for the world at large. If anybody would listen, I'm not the arbiter of any truth, but I am this. I do know this much. If people come bearing easy answers, you should be very wary. You should be very wary. That's just my opinion. I don't know if that's the truth or correct, but it feels right, and sometimes that's all it takes is for it to feel right. One more time, 702-957-1037, talking about CRISPR, talking about gene editing tomatoes to be better in vitamin C. We'll get to the potatoes shortly, so we can do potato, tomato. But before that, let's go to Matt in Colorado. Thanks for being patient with us tonight. Welcome to Troubled Minds. How are you, my man?
Well, I'm doing really good. Hey, I always say Matt from Colorado, and I've said before I'm up in the high mountains of Colorado, but I want to be more specific. I want to give the spooks that are looking for me because I called into your show a little more detail. Okay, so I'm actually in a cave in Colorado, and I'm about 2.5 miles back in the cave, and I know that because I had to buy 13,000 feet of coaxial cable to string outside of my cave to a waggy antenna so that I could get internet signal to be able to, communicate with the rest of the world and call into your show. Okay, so if they want to look for me, okay, come look in the caves. You got to go back in there, Race, but,
Just follow the miles of coax, and you can't miss you. Gotcha. Copy that.
Right. Locate where all the caves are, and then, send your teams of, back into the caves and come looking for me because that's where I'm at. But, I always take notes when you're talking, and I want to address all your different questions, and you got good questions. Before we go into that, I have a quick question, a little bit of a tangent. I love the idea of tangents, and I think that in my experiences, the most beneficial, wonderful parts of conversations I've had with people weren't really about the topic. They were about the tangents that people went into. They go into the stories go off, the conversations go off into a tangent. And those tangents I've found are sometimes the most valuable, important part of the conversation. So I love that you said that. I agree with you. And so here's my tangent. And so I'm going to put this out as a question for you and your listeners, and I want you to contemplate this. Don't answer it, and people, if they want to, that call in can answer it, and maybe they'll call back in the third hour, and etc. So here's the question. What is perhaps the most powerful type or category of thought that there is, and why? Why is that type or category of thought the most powerful? So that's my little tangent I'll drop in there, but let's go into the CRISPR stuff.
Okay, wait. Before you do that, so let me clarify the question. You said, what type of thought is the most powerful? Is that what you said?
Yeah, being specific with the use of language, what is perhaps the most powerful type or category of thought
Okay,
that
gotcha.
there is, and what, why is it the most powerful type or category of thought?
Okay,
So I
got it.
want you to contemplate that. I'd love to hear your answer to it. I'd love to hear other callers, listeners' answers. I want them to think about it. Okay, so we'll just leave that drop there for a second.
Copy.
So, all right. So on to the CRISPR stuff, and I'm not going to be able to resist the Night Stalker elevator and take this up to the higher levels where we can get off on that elevator. And as you were talking about it, as always, I'm kind of tracking along with you. You know, I think it's telepathy, but even before you mentioned it, I wrote down, you know, about what about humans? What about modifying the DNA of humans to make a better human? You want to make a better tomato? You want to make a better potato? What about making a better human? Or I'll get into this, but we can get off on a higher level of the elevator. Maybe that's already been done. Ooh, maybe the DNA of humans has already been altered over time. Maybe back thousands of years. Maybe us humans now are just catching up with the capability, technologically speaking, with the CRISPR to alter DNA that maybe other advanced civilizations, of course, had and did. Maybe our DNA's already altered. Okay, I already took the elevator. Gosh darn it, I got to keep riding it. Okay, so interestingly, I heard the other day that they were determining, sort of like when you have a radioactive isotope, and they can determine how long the half-life is. With DNA, they've been able to determine how long it takes it to double in length. And they know how many thousands of years it takes it to grow and to double in length. And so they've done the mathematics on that, and they've traced that back. And if you do that with the human DNA, what's kind of weird is human DNA apparently is 6 billion years old. Well, there's only been the planet Earth for 4.5 billion years. So that's kind of a weird thing. That's like DNA that's in humans is older than Earth is, which sort of begs the question, well, it probably came from beyond Earth or before Earth, and you start getting into like terraforming, and maybe the human DNA came from elsewhere, and it was older than life on Earth or us. But yeah, I'm sorry, I got on the elevator. I had to take it up to the top floor.
That's okay. That's why we do this, because of course there's more than one way to think about these things. And I've never heard that the actual human DNA, mathematically speaking, is older than the age of the Earth. I've never heard that, but it doesn't surprise me, because of course they say that we're all made of stardust, including the Earth, right? Like we're all sort of made of the same cosmic stuff. So that in those terms doesn't really surprise me. But I guess maybe in terms of like DNA and the way genes are and encoding genes and things like this, maybe it should be surprising. Maybe it should be one of those things where, like you said, what if there was an ancient CRISPR? And that, I think that kind of leads to the whole other, right, the Anunnaki and Zachariah Sitchin, and right, that whole story of maybe gene editing people a long time ago. And there's a lot of that ancient alien stuff that kind of describes, let's say, this sort of ambiguous period of a brain explosion a couple million years ago, something like this. Well, they can't really account for it, but some suggest that, ancient astronaut theorists, of course, say yes, but some others also suggest that it may have been some sort of gene modification that sort of caused this big brain explosion. But again, I don't know. These timelines are super vague and super fuzzy depending on who you ask. So I don't know. Like again, truth to me is still a slippery fish, and I think we can probably leave that conversation at that, in my opinion. Let me ask you this, though. So do you think, let's say in modern times, again, let's bring the elevator back down to just the ground floor. Do you think we should be messing with this stuff now? This is, again, we've talked about playing God on this show quite a lot, about the hubris of humans and sort of maybe making some sweeping changes to not just the genome, but let's say Mother Earth. Do you think that we should at some point play God with this type of stuff before we really know the implications? Do you think this is dangerous? Do you think this is good? Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, and I had that in my notes, and before I wanted to take off on the elevator, I was going to cover that first. So, thanks for bringing me a little bit back down to earth. But, good idea, dangers. Like you were saying, it always seems like a good idea. They always kind of present it like it's a good idea. See how wonderful this is, and we got the vitamin D in the tomatoes, and etc. But something in my gut, it just always kind of goes, I'm not sure we really should be playing God with this stuff. And I think there are, potentially some unforeseen consequences, like we were talking about with the mice that got more violent when they just kind of messed up. I don't know if we were talking about that. I heard it on a different podcast, but they were doing the genetic altering of the mice, and instead of making them more passive, they actually got more aggressive. And sometimes what they call junk DNA is parts of the DNA that are they don't understand, and they're real legitimate, effective parts that make a difference. And we're kind of monkeying around with stuff that we really don't know that much about. And we're kind of playing God where, and I don't mean that in a religious sense, but it's like where we don't have that sort of level of knowledge and understanding to know what we're messing with, and what we're doing. And can we make mistakes? Can things be dangerous? Can there be side effects? Can there be downsides? Can we come up with some kind of foods that are genetically altered, or animals, or etc., that end up being like, oh gosh, I said it before, once the genie's out of the bottle. And I don't trust the mad scientists, and I don't trust that it's all benevolent in terms of its outcome. I think there's people that legitimately think, hey, this is a really good deal, and this is going to benefit humanity. There's scientific benefit to it. It's a medical benefit to it. There's nutritional benefit to it. But is that really what comes out of it? Or maybe is it some unintended side effects, or something, like you said, more nefarious going on? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, as usual, I think it's complicated. I think that my opinion on this is we should be extremely careful. I think that, like you said, I do believe it's a good idea, and not in the term of, let's say, requiring anybody to do this. I hate that idea. But let's say that you can actually, they're doing this stuff already. Like we talked about Monsanto and some of the things that they're, that's a whole nother thing, right? But kind of not, but kind of is. But they're modifying these crops to be more resistant to, let's say, bacteria, or more resistance to locust predators, like this type of stuff. Actual insects that like to eat the crops, right? They're making them more resistant to this type of natural decimation of crops. Okay, But then, right, so like I said, it seems fine. It seems fine. But then eventually the question becomes, right, once you've done this so much and so often, you sort of lose where we started, right? Because you tweak things so much. And the question becomes, and this is where the question is on not just tomatoes, potatoes, tomatoes, but also on the rest of it, including people, right? So at what point have you tinkered genetically with a tomato so much that it's just no longer a tomato anymore, right? It's like a tomato-ish. And so to me, that it's fine until it's not fine. And so I think we should be extremely, extremely careful with this and maybe do like generations of testing. And I mean, we're talking about tomatoes, right? Or crops and things like this. So, a generation is going to be like a season, and you could probably, speed some of that up with some, some fancy labs and some lights and things, So I think we could probably spend a ton of time actually doing this properly. And what I mean by properly is not just inventing this thing in like 1996 when it was invented, and then 10 years later doing it in people. You know what I mean? That seems awful fast to me when we don't even understand what we don't understand. And I think that's the most dangerous part about technology is we get one new thing and we're off to the races. And that's like, cool, that's fine, except, well, until it isn't. And I think we should be very cautious and very careful and do this very slowly. And a ton of testing, a ton of open source testing, which again is part of the problem too, because you have these patents behind these things and people covering up results because they don't want bad press, right? They don't want us talking about stuff like this because there's billions of dollars behind this. It's that's my answer. We should just be very, very, very careful with this. And yeah. So okay. What else you got, my friend?
I totally agree with you. I think that I ate my mom's homemade bread, the most delicious bread. She'd make it by hand every day for my entire life. And it wasn't until I was in my early 40s I started having this gluten intolerance thing. And I'm like, how is it that I ate wheat and gluten my entire life, and then now all of a sudden I got a problem with it? And so in dealing with my own, medical issues, basically, and health issues, I started researching it. I started studying it. I started questioning. And, what I found out was that it was all the GMO and the Monsanto, and that it was what they were putting on it, and those are insecticides, which the way they kill the insects is they rot their guts out. Well, it turns out that's what they were doing to the humans. They were rotting the guts out. They were rotting my guts out. And I'm like, okay, so you develop this thing that you say it's going to make more abundant crops, which it turns out it doesn't, and it's going to cure the world, food shortage and hunger problem, which turns out it doesn't. And then the side effects are it rots everybody's guts out, and now everybody has irritable bowel syndrome and everybody has gluten intolerance. And I went through my own process of discovering how to treat this and how to deal with it, and I wrote a book about it to help other people about it. But I'm like, what? I agree with you so much. What if happened was that they developed this and they said, okay, let's study this for 50 years before we start putting it all over the planet, and making everybody our guinea pigs and our beta testers and see what happens to them. Hey, when you come out with something new that's totally different and genetically engineered, let's see what happens. Let's do some testing. Let's do some double-blind scientific studies of 50,000 people or 5,000 people and test it over 10 years, 20 years time and see what happens to them before you unleash it on everyone. So they don't do that because they're corporate and they're greedy and there's money involved. And so that's the problem, with the CRISPR technology and the tomato. Okay, so yeah, it gives you a whole lot more vitamin D. Okay, great. And 15 years from now, some people are developing some kind of new health issue that has to do with these tomatoes, and I just can't help but say that there's no place on the planet that you can't get enough vitamin D from the sun from 20 minutes of daily exposure, not even in Alaska. So you don't need to supplement vitamin D. You don't need to. But I'm just saying, yeah, I agree with you. If you're going to create new stuff, you ought to test it. You ought to double-blind test it over 10 years, over 100,000 people before you release it on the public that are just like these mice in a laboratory and beta testers, and then find out, 5 or 10 years later, oh, well, it turns out it really kills people and harms people. And so, yeah, in terms of, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Are there dangers? Yeah, there could be some good, but I'm more on the side of there's a lot of dangers, there's a lot of risks, and I don't trust these guys that have their profit agenda to really manage it well. I don't.
Yeah, I agree. And so I got to let you go here. We got to coming down to a break. But I think the thing is, too, I know why we need the extra vitamin D, man. It's because when they put us in our padded room with our VR headset, we're not going to have access to sunlight. So if you give us supercharged vitamin D tomatoes, everything's going to be just fine, my friend. I appreciate the phone call. You are the best. I don't know why you're beeping at me, but always a pleasure. If you got more, I'd love to talk to you later in the third hour, okay? Appreciate the phone call, Matt.
All right, well, I'm back here in my cave, so I have no sunlight. So I either have to walk out 2.5 miles or take vitamin D supplements,
Fair enough. Well, the good news is you got vitamin D-laden tomatoes coming your way. Have a great one. Thanks for the call. I'll talk to you later, man. There you go. Easy as that. If you want to be part of the show, 702-957-1037. We're talking about CRISPR tonight. We're talking about this idea of course, genetically modifying not just, let's say, animals and, the flora and fauna of the earth in brevity. But right, it becomes complicated, as always. Let's get one more quick clip before we take a break regarding what CRISPR is from this individual, and then we'll get to the spicy stuff after the break at the top of the hour here.
People think that at some level, every disease has got a genetic component. So monogenetic diseases are ones that we can trace back to a single a single gene that has a defect. Often those genes have multiple mutations, but at least it's a single gene has been identified. So the most promising application of CRISPR would be to modify those monogenetic diseases. And those monogenetic diseases, they broadly fall into two categories, kind of curiously named toxic gain of function and toxic loss of function. So toxic loss of function is the one that's kind of intuitive. That means that the gene has got a defect in it. The person loses the function of that protein, and that causes a disease. So a well-known, well-studied example would be sickle cell anemia. So a single base pair mutation actually causes a change in the structure of hemoglobin that then creates this unique sickle cell shape for red blood cells.
Okay. See? So again, there are good reasons to want to do this, to be able to, let's say, genetically edit genes, to edit gene editing, right? There are reasons why this is a good thing, okay? There are. And it's hard for me to argue against that because there are very good reasons. There are lots of people born with genetic, let's say, issues, okay? And not just, let's say something debilitating from birth or something to that effect, but let's say something, you're genetically more predisposed to heart disease or things like this, right? Or cancer or all the rest of this. And let's say some of that can be, let's say, mediated or even completely fixed. There's a lot of good reasons for this, okay? But I think when you start to think about it in terms of the larger picture, how do we determine what's a good gene and what's a bad gene, right? It goes back to, as do many things, the Wizard of Oz. Are you a good witch or are you a bad witch, okay? And of course, clearly and obviously, when it's obvious, right? But when it's also ambiguous, we have a serious problem. When do we stop fixing genes? I'd love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More CRISPR miracles and other gene editing oddities when we return. Be right back. We are talking about the alien abduction phenomenon.
The aliens are looking through your eyes and they're accessing your optic nerve. I'm doing fantastic. Through that optic nerve, they're transferring to your brain. People are random images as they traverse neurons in the brain.
Alright, so maybe
and they also feel them planting or receiving memories or ideas or images.
Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and hello to all of you who may also have troubled minds. What's going on, guys? It is Tuesday night, which is one of the nights we get together and talk about all the things we're not allowed to talk about. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific. What are those things, you may wonder? There's too much, so I'm going to have to sum up. Aliens, conspiracy, the paranormal, the government, academia, the 24-hour news cycle, propaganda, and the general feeling that we live in the upside down. As always, we're taking your phone calls tonight as we talk about CRISPR. That's right, CRISPR. You ever heard of it? Well, if you haven't, you're in for a treat. A vitamin D-packed tomato treat. Looking to hear your thoughts as we get into this. 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. As you know, we are streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, D-Live, and Twitter, doing this live on a Tuesday night. And, of course, we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. There's a few things going on as well. If you want to join, not just the chat in those places, the chat on Discord. You can go to troubledminds.org, click the Discord link, and the phone number is there as well. So if I read the phone number too fast, which I am, I do that often because I've learned to talk quickly, and it's been one of those things where it's a challenge trying to keep up with my mouth anymore. But meaning my brain is struggling to keep up with my mouth, and well, that's not always a good thing. So in any case, we're doing reading the chat in all the places, including on Discord. Discord's a chat client, it's a voice client, it's totally free. Come join the conversation. It goes on 24 hours a day over there. Lots of good folks to meet and talk to. Many of the folks that are actually active here on and contribute to the show are also active on Discord. So come say hi. You can also join so troubledminds.org, click the Discord link. There's also another Discord running on Fringe. It's the same program. It's just a different chat room. We're looking at the Fringe chat over there. What's up, S Magician? Shout out to you. How you doing, buddy? I see you there. And go to fringe.fm/chat and you can give you a direct invite. Like I said, it's totally free. It's super cool. Check it out. We're talking about CRISPR tonight. All right, CRISPR. Now look, just let's start over from the beginning here and just to fill everybody in that maybe is just joining us radio style. And hang tight, Daryl. Going to get to you in just a second. I'm going to play this clip. Let's start over. This is what CRISPR is and what it means, and then we'll get to some of the reasons why this is a little bit, let's say, concerning.
CRISPR is this fascinating, powerful technology. It's got a very clunky name. It's called clustered, regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. Now, what does that mean? So the name actually refers to the way it interacts with DNA. And it's a way to manipulate DNA, to edit DNA in a way that previously is much more powerful than previous methods, much simpler, much cheaper, and the important part is it's exceptionally precise. So as you probably know, our book of life is made of DNA. DNA itself is many millions of base pairs, which is like a language. And within that language, there are certain regions which code for genes, and those genes are incredibly important because
they better be, because hey, everybody loves a good pair of jeans, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's what's up. That's what that stands for. We had a question in the chat. I wanted to just make sure we circled back and played exactly what CRISPR was, what it stood for, what the technology is. But it's basically gene editing, all right? It's gene editing. And we started with this article tonight, and it gets darker from here because, of course, scientists CRISPR'd tomatoes to make them full of vitamin D, right? That's fine. Like I said, it seems like everything's good. And then, the more you go into this, you're like, here's one from phys.org. Researchers use CRISPR technology to modify starches in potatoes, right? Again, there's lots of different uses for potatoes. We don't just eat them. We use them for science and other, let's say, manufacturing type things, the different starches and whatnot, science, of course, all kinds of different things, right? And the further you go into this, you're like, okay, then we got this article from the Daily Mail. From vitamin D fortified tomatoes to bird flu resistant chickens and mushrooms that never brown, the gene edited frankenfoods that could be on supermarket shelves in the UK as soon as next year. Yeah, we'll get into some of this. So not just food, right? Like I said, the flora and the fauna, which means, well, animals. We'll get to that as well coming up next. And then, of course, the idea is, well, should we be meddling so much with nature? We're like, let's make a better tomato. And so we do. Let's make a better potato. And so we do. And then what? Let's make a better person. And so we do. What does that mean for good old us? The people that aren't the better persons, if you know what I mean. 702-957-1037. Let's go to Daryl in New York. Are you there? Test 1 2. Daryl?
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Good evening. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm glad you're talking about this. This is so important. I want to just say something. Why do we have to fortify our foods? We overprocess our foods. We remove a lot of their nutrition by overprocessing them, and then we have to refortify them with extra vitamins and minerals because they're removed while they're processed. But the problem with processed food is they add also a lot of sugar and salt and other stuff that's bad for you, and we don't even really know how much is too much. There's kids probably have way too much zinc because there's too much overprocessing, and then fortification of food. And then why are they going to make a tomato better? You know that they're using these biosolids to fertilize our soil that have 352 known pollutants, including like tetracycline and antibiotics and PFSAs that have flame retardants and what else do they have in them? They're just terrible adverse human effects from all these PFA man-made chemicals that are in our biosolids. That means when they purify our water, they remove these biosolids, right? So the water is purified, and what's left is this crap. And then somehow during, one of the President Clinton's era, I think it was, it was signed into be okay to use for farming for cotton. But what if those farmers use it for food? They don't want to grow cotton. And now we're finding that this is being found, these horrible things are found in our tomatoes, in our spinach, and our corn. So they're already in there from bio-treated soil. Why are we not improving the health of our soil? We have water protection agencies, we have ecological protection. What about the soil protection? I think it's so backwards, to do this editing on something that we've already messed up by using so many chemicals. It's just crazy. Let's get back to nature. Let's get back to basics. Everything that's been GMO'd has been really hard to reverse. When they realize it's making potatoes with insecticide in them. It's just an insane concept. So let's make a better tomato. The tomato is probably pretty perfect as is before we started processing everything. And I think it was started during the Second World War, when we wanted to have a longer shelf life, and we were supplying food to other countries, and we had to make a lot of food for the soldiers, and they started processing everything, and then it's like a snowball effect of bad science, I would say. Like, I know we took the nutrients out, so let's put them back in. How much is too much, and who's in charge of this? The FDA. Now, we know the FDA is such a good regulatory agency. They're not corrupt at all, I mean, can we trust any regulatory agency at all now? They're not doing anything in our best interest. They've been corrupted by big tech. I can't trust any technology at this point unless it's going. I want to hear a real nutritionist or a macrobiologist just in charge of something. I want to see some real people in the government and not politicians. And I just want to get back to, honesty and truth in advertising and truth in everything. That's all. That's all.
That's all. Hey, you know what? I think, Daryl, I think it's not a lot to ask, but it is, I think we're probably past a certain point anymore. And, saying that we don't trust regulatory bodies is, in the old days, if you said that, it was like blasphemy. Anymore, it's like, duh.
It's honest. Wake up, everybody. Yeah, wake up. This can't be good. And who's going to be eating pure stuff soon? Are we just going to have to be eating like this fake meat now? Are they just going to make it impossible for us to have anything healthy? They even wanted to ban supplements at one point, because they were, afraid they would replace something, that was artificial and hopefully beneficial, but not. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I think they've got to stop it. It's enough with the, if you eat well, you probably can eliminate most of your genetically inherited conditions because your parents probably ate badly and then you are eating badly. It's more to do with your nutrition than your genetics. But at this point, I don't think our genetics are ever going to be that pure anymore. We're being modified. I think, we're evolving. I think it's amazing how we can evolve to accommodate these like poisons. I can't even understand how we're all still here after Fukushima. I don't even get that. I mean, that's a good question, don't you think? There was so much radiation. How come we're not? I don't know, just whatever.
Yeah, that's still happening, by the way. They're still pouring radioactive water into the ocean over there. Like, it hasn't stopped. Right. It hasn't stopped. But it is a good question. And so not only that, like, again, so back to the other questions as well. There are other good questions. Listen to this. They're calling this, again, this is from the Daily Mail, from the Frankenfoods, right? And the UK is actually allowing them to be put on the shelves now. So it's not just GMO, right? Genetically modified organism. As S Magician says over there on the Fringe Discord, he says, I'm now always looking for bioengineered product on any food labels besides GMO to make sure, right? So bioengineered and GMO are different. They're different, right? And so there's going to be all these different labels where it has all this list of like God knows what on there. And well, what are we supposed to do? I don't know what we're supposed to do. Like at some point, right? Like you got to grow your own food, right? Like you have to. At some point, we have to start doing this, and back to the co-ops and the rest of this stuff, and doing the you Daryl, you grow the tomatoes, I'll grow the potatoes, and we'll just trade what we need, that type of stuff. Like once we get back to that, like we're. I think what can they do? Well, I guess regulate that. But okay, so check this out. So the question was, and this is the scary part. If we call them Frankenfoods, okay, meaning that they're gene edited, okay, meaning that like I said, at what point does a tomato stop being a tomato anymore? Once you've tinkered with the genetics of tomato for so long. It's a tomato-ish. It's a potato-ish, right? And that's what we're talking about. Potato. Yeah, exactly. The tomato actually becomes a tomato, and the potato actually becomes a potato. It actually happens, right? Like the name isn't the name anymore. But check it out. It gets even crazier, right? So this is from MSN and this other article. But now, once you start, like I said, the flora is one thing, but what about the fauna? What happens when you start changing things like, I don't know, rats, hamsters? Check this out. This is from Yahoo News. You're going to love this. We talked about this on the periphery last week a little bit, but and Matt brought it up when he called as well. But this is a headline from Yahoo News from May 21st. Scientists, quote, really surprised after gene editing experiment unexpectedly turned hamsters into hyper-aggressive bullies. Oh, well, I thought this was fine, and we knew exactly what we were doing, right? I thought this was okay.
Can you imagine? What if, you're going to find a whole new society or a whole new generation of very, very violent people or very aggressive people? I mean, we're already aggressive enough. How can we become more aggressive and more hateful and more damaging? Let's just keep editing stuff. And when are they just going to start just adding flavor to just like cardboard and turning it into something fleshy and putting some nutrients in it and saying, hey, no, that tastes like a tomato, it looks like a tomato. It's not. It's soil and green. It's cardboard. It's hay. It's biosolids. It's they can manipulate so much stuff. We're not going to have anything natural anymore. And then what happens? What happens to like even people that we're going to become so artificially treated? We're going to have so many negative effects that it's going to be just too late. I think it's not going to be a great place to live. I think there's going to be very few people, that are going to be peaceful and not harmful, and we're going to have to avoid them. How are we going to control this? I mean, who knows? The side effects, they don't do any testing. Throw all caution to the wind. Just go for it, Why aren't they're putting this on the shelf without like a 10-year study? Come on. Be responsible already,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the problem. That's why we just can't trust, trust the science anymore, right? I'm going to play this clip. You're going to love this. And then we'll get to why this idea of the hamster, right, becoming surprise scientists by becoming hyper aggressive when they try to edit the gene of the hamster to not be that way. It was a complete opposite. It was a complete 180. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to play this. I don't want to keep playing clips to you. What else you got for us, Daryl? We'll finish your call, and then I'll finish these clips here.
I'm good. I'll respond to whatever you say. But, go ahead and play your clips and take some calls. I want to hear what people have to say.
Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. Sounds good. I appreciate it. You're welcome to stay right there. Just mute up. I'll make it so you can hear these clips. This is Daryl in New York, good friend of mine, good friend of the show's. She's got a YouTube channel. Please check it out. Link is in the description down below. She sings in English and French, and also I almost said French, English and French, and also has on her YouTube channel has a bunch of stuff about Morgellons and other conspiracy type stuff, some paranormal stuff as well. Go check it out. Links in the description. It says follow Daryl here. Okay. Now listen to this. Now this is where this starts to get dark. All right. Now this same guy from Yale. He's talking about CRISPR technology, and he's talking about why we should be concerned, okay? So in light of this, listen to this, okay? So we got this thing real quick just with the hamsters. Now, it gets dark. The more you chase this down the rabbit hole, the more you're like, wait, what the hell's going on? What are they actually trying to do here? Scientists, again, from Yahoo News, May 21st, and this is from actually via Business Insider. Scientists really surprised after gene editing experiment unexpectedly turned hamsters into hyper-aggressive bullies. A team of neuroscientists was surprised by the results of a gene editing experiment on hamsters. The team expected that the elimination of vasopressin activity would make the hamsters behave more peacefully. Instead, the gene-edited hamsters displayed high levels of aggression. Right there. Look, it was literally the opposite. They wanted them to be more peaceful, but instead they did the CRISPR thing, they edited the gene, and then boom, they turned them into like these hyper aggro. In the headline it says bullies. Hyper aggro bullies, right? The exact opposite of what they wanted. All right. Now, this is why this is the most terrifying thing about this, because we're like, oh yeah, no problem. You want the baby with the blue eyes and the 6'2" and high metabolism, whatever, right? Like boom, 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 gene edits, bam, crank the kid out. Okay, well, listen to this. This is that same doctor from Yale. Again, his name is Dr. Greg Licolai, and again from Yale, and he's talking about why this stuff can be dangerous. Check this out. This starts to get super dark.
One of the biggest risks of CRISPR is what's called gene drive or genetic drive. What that means is that because you're actually manipulating genes, and those genes get incorporated into the genome, into the encyclopedia basically that sits within cells, potentially those genes can then be transferred on to other organisms. And once they're transferred onto other organisms, once they become part of the cycle, then those genes are in the environment. That's probably the biggest fear of CRISPR, that humans manipulating the genetic code and those manipulations get passed on generation to generation to generation.
This should be fine. This should be fine. Okay, now, not only that, this is, again, from a doctor at Yale that actually works with CRISPR and knows this as well or better than most people in the world, okay? He's saying this. Not only is he saying this, listen in the context he says it. I'm going to play the next clip. But then also remembering that they just did this experiment with the hamsters, trying to make them more peaceful, more docile, and they ended up making them more hyper-aggressive. Literally the opposite of what they wanted, okay? So once again, why are we tinkering with stuff when we haven't done generations to find out? Let's say that it's undetectable and it seems fine until the third generation and things go haywire, and then reverse, right? Like, it's impossible to know unless you test dozens or hundreds, maybe thousands of generations of these life cycles to find out how you're tinkering, right? Meaning, we've talked about the chaos theory, the butterfly effect. When you do something like this, there could be dire consequences. Back to this guy again, one more time. Greg Licolai, Yale, listen to this.
And the fear is that we think we know what we're doing. We think we are measuring exactly what changes we're doing to the genes. But there's always the possibility that either we miss something or our technology can't pick up on other changes that have been made that haven't been directed by us. And the fear then is that those changes lead to antibiotic resistance or other mutations that go out into the population and would be very difficult to control. Basically creating incurable diseases or other potential mutations that we wouldn't really have control over.
Man, that guy is so soothing. He talks like a doctor, doesn't he? That would put me to sleep. But right, listen to what he's saying. Extremely terrifying. He's like, well, the fear is that maybe some things are happening that our current science can't detect, cannot pick up. And so we're changing these things. We're editing these little words in the pages in the book as he described it. And like I said, in this case, the generation of hamsters, they tried to make them more peaceful. They made them more aggressive, okay? What happens if it doesn't, or it's so minuscule a change that it passes on and it's like a runaway freight train, and it starts to, let's say when it gets prevalent in the gene pool of, let's say, the wild, that these things become more and more aggressive. I mean, this is literally how like every Alfred Hitchcock movie starts, right? I mean, something like to that effect, like Birds. You guys ever seen that movie? I think it's called The Birds, right? I mean, it's like, come on now. Like, at some point, you have to say, stop. We don't know what we're doing yet. Like, why do we have to tinker with things when we don't understand the full scope of them? And straight out of the horse's mouth, or at least one of the horses involved here, you got to wonder, right? He has some legitimate concerns, and he's a doctor that does this stuff. I'm just a knucklehead on the internet with a microphone, and I see, right? You open your eyes to see. I see how this could be super problematic. Like what? Like, why are the tomatoes worse? Why should they be worse? And like Daryl said, we're processing the hell out of them. Like Robert said, I only buy vine tomatoes anyway because the stuff they feed to us is garbage. So what the hell's going on? This stuff's supposed to be better, right? It's supposed to be better. Well, you tell me. I don't know. I wish I had the answers here, but I do not. Okay, I do not. So, the questions are this as we go tonight, as we continue. Love to hear your thoughts regarding CRISPR. What do you know about it? What do you know about the actual, let's say, the dangers? We just heard it from an individual at Yale who works with CRISPR, and he said, well, the danger is maybe we don't know what we don't know. This is fine, right? This should be fine. 10 generations down the line, when we all turn into hyper-aggressive barbarians, like hell-bent on murderous rage, this should be fine. But by then it's too late, because it's already in the population, people breeding around doing as they do. What's next? Love to hear your thoughts at 702-957-1037. That's 702-957-1037. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Don't go anywhere. More CRISPR miracles and other gene editing oddities when we return. Be right back. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange, and we're streaming on Rockfin, YouTube, DLive, and Twitter, and we're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. We're taking your phone calls tonight as we discuss, that's right, CRISPR. CRISPR. That's right. Gene editing, right? We're told it's a miracle. We're told that they're going to be able to cure all kinds of things, and they're going to be able to trace it back down to a specific gene. Well, what happens if they're wrong? What happens if they determine a defective gene is not actually defective, it's a personality trait? What happens? What happens? And by the way, there's a recent example of this in exactly this article from Yahoo News via Business Insider. Scientists really surprised after gene editing experiment. It unexpectedly turned hamsters into hyper-aggressive bullies. What in the world is going on with this, and why are we bothering just messing with the genomes already? I mean, come for crying out loud, right? Like we just talked about, like completely finely mapping the human genome. That's how complex it is, right? It's taken, 25 years or something, or 30. It's like a long ass time. It's taken a very, very, very long time. Okay. And so we're like, okay, now we've done it. We've narrowed this down to whatever we've narrowed it down to. And now we know what genes cause what, because we can, correlation and causation, wink, wink. And then we can just start fixing people. It's like, wait, what if people weren't broken, right? And I'm not saying people are perfect, but I'm also saying, look at this. Again, case in point, this exact article from Business Insider via Yahoo. Not only are they surprised when these hamsters became hyper-aggressive bullies, right? The goal of this was to make them behave more peacefully. So literally the exact opposite of what they wanted to happen happened. The exact opposite. So explain to me how this is fine, how this is okay, how we've tested this enough, how we know what the hell we're doing. I want to know. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. It's disturbing. It's pretty disturbing. All of this, the more I think about this, the more it really kind of pisses me off because, we know, everybody knows the story about the blue-eyed babies in China, right? Actually, that's not what it was, by the way. It came into the zeitgeist that way, but they actually genetically modified children, babies, newborns in China, to be, let's say, more resistant to HIV, all right, to AIDS. That's what they did. 2 of them, as a matter of fact. And so there was a huge firestorm and all the rest of this, and people like designer babies, right? But, we don't even know if it's true because in that case, like the guy disappeared, the scientist that supposedly did it, the babies themselves, nobody knows where they're at. They're in like protective custody or something because everybody's freaking out, calling them like Franken babies or something. I mean, I don't even know if it's true. Is it propaganda? Is it Chinese propaganda to try and make us do what we're doing right now? I don't know. And that's why I think that we need to talk about this amongst each other the way we do. Okay. So I'd love to hear your thoughts one more time. 702-957-1037. Let's go to, I see you there, Matt. Please give me a call back in the third hour, my friend. We can't, we got to share the love a little bit. Okay. Now let's go to Jennifer in Missouri, or if you want to hang on the line, stay right there and I'll get to you as soon as I can. Jennifer, you're on Troubled Minds. What's going on? How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. Hope you're doing good too, and everybody else.
Thank you.
It's a good show.
Thank you. Hyper-aggressive hamsters seems not great. But what about hyper-aggressive people 3 generations down the line? Go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Could be. Yeah. I mean, it could. Here's the thing. I think, gene editing, it seems like, initially, at first glance, sounds like a great idea. It does. It really does. Because it's like, we'll improve the whole, we'll improve upon ourselves. We'll become more than we are. And we'll do it the easy way. We'll just go right in. Not through, millions of years of evolution. We'll just, or not even evolution, but adaptation. We'll just go right in and just take care of it, snip, and do that. But this is very easily, looks like practice. I know that they've been doing it for a while, and I think that they have the basic science down of how they would do it. But it seems like there's the possibility, and I'm sure they're aware of this, but I just don't believe that they can play God this way. And by playing God, I mean like by playing the nature of the adaptation of any species and how it adapts to its environment over the course of a very long spans of time and experience, how it decides and picks and chooses, how it will progress itself. And I believe that it's highly likely, like we were talking about a month back or something about trees. And there was some talk about the fact that and some research in it that I found anyway, that the trees themselves, a lot of times these plants will go into the ground and they won't do anything with their actual, they plan out some types of trees, I can't remember the species now, but they'll plan out what they're going to do off of it's picking up information somehow from the ground itself and its environment for a long period of time, sometimes a year or two, before it will even start to progress to grow. So there's this very interesting hibernation thing going on all the time in the species as it's adapting to what it needs to edit, in its genes to make the most of it. Survival of the fittest, which that's what nature is about. It lets nothing survive that can't, that isn't ideal for the environment. And I feel like if we kind of skip ahead this way, there's even the possibility that should there be another ice age, or should there be anything unexpected, a change with the sun or a change with the atmosphere, anything at all in our environment that may actually be hiding in the memory of our genes, could be accidentally edited out of the entire species, and then we just all go extinct. In the past, you have all these different factors that help to guide any species on the planet, any organism living at all, in the correct direction so that it can progress at its optimum. There is no weakest link in nature. Those disappear. There is no such thing unless there's something taking it out by fiddling with it. And that has been the case with many of the extinctions and things like that, where humans have interfered, or there's been an invasive species introduced into their own, into a different ecosystem. If we start, putting something into the ecosystem of our own bodies, the micro world, the universe inside of our own bodies, that defines the future millennia of human beings across the planet, in every region of the planet, in every type of temperature, and every type of conceivable area that humans live on the planet. If you start fiddling with that, and not to mention the different types of diseases and what purpose they actually may be serving that we are not aware of as far as adaptation goes, and what kind of process that is working right now, that it appears to be a struggle, and that it's cutting us out or cutting us down, but it may be improving us and we don't even know it. Little falters here and there that appear to be our enemy, that they may want to edit out, may be actually helping us in a way that we are unaware, because it's much wiser than we are. I trust in billions and billions of years of existence of the immortals. When you think about it, we are created by the immortals talked about in all of mythology. And by the immortals, I mean like the sun, the moon, the oceans, the wind. Those are the immortals that they talk about. And those are the very things that decide our existence, and our fate, as far as a species is decided by these outside influences that are gently guiding us in the perfect direction. If we can't trust in that, and we decide to take it into our own hands in the course of 20 years, 30, maybe 100, that they've been fiddling with this, it's probably not going to go well to jump ahead of the game that way. And I don't think it's a good idea. I think that it's interesting that they're trying to tweak this or that, but what they're messing with could extinguish the entire species. Or it could have some kind of, like, for example, Bill Gates. There was a video floating around. This is the last thing I'll say about it real quick. There was a video floating around a couple years back, and it was Bill Gates. I don't know if it's real or not. Everybody should look it up. It was Bill Gates supposedly at the Pentagon, and it certainly looked like the Pentagon. And there was the projector on the wall, and he's presenting to a little, arena Pentagon officials. And in the video, he's talking about gene editing and how to introduce gene editing that would edit out what's called the God gene. The God gene is what at the moment they were talking about, would help to reduce radical religious extremism by editing out that kind of loyalty, the gene that feeds into that. If you think about that, and at first you're like, well, I guess it would be better if we didn't have people so dedicated to a cause that they kill for it or die for it. But at the same time, it's so mysterious that if you're fiddling with that, what you might accidentally do, you know. But anyway, it's a great topic, and I just wanted to chime in with that stuff right there. And I think it's a hard thing to replace. We're trying to fill some big shoes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Those are awful big shoes, like really, really big shoes. And you're right. Like we're talking about 20 years ish, 30 years ish, trying to like do better than a billion years, right? Because of our knowledge now. It's insane. It's insanity.
We're so sure. It's insane. It's crazy pride. Like something only humans could, you know. Or unless there's some kind of other influence, there's always that possible. There's the afufu thing, where there could be an outside influence being like poking the stick, like go, 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 you know, follow the carrot. I don't know what for, because that's a totally different topic. But there could be something on the other side of this. There could be a more nefarious goal at hand. It could be intentional to purposely mess it up. I have no idea, but it could. It's a good way to start to completely destroy an entire species. That's very impressive, you know, because humans are pretty impressive. We do impressive, amazing, creative things. It's remarkable, you know, the effect we have on the planet for good or for bad. And fiddling with it, I don't know, because if you mess something up, we could literally just burn this whole house down. You know what I mean? If it goes the wrong way. Not only destroy ourselves, but take it to such an extreme where we go too far and there's no coming back. Can you re-put a gene back in once you've and not to mention, and we've talked about this before, but like generations down of editing, what are the effects? Do they pass on the genes that have been edited out? Are those forever gone? Do they mutate later on? Do they try to, what's that word? There's a better word than I'm going to say, but anyway, where they come back up again and, you know, recessive genes. Are there recessive genes that are absolutely necessary to the progress of humanity? Are we slowly opening up different little gateways inside of ourselves with ever so many generations because the planet and the species is aware of a future thing that will happen, a progression that I've heard people will all be blue in so many thousands of years from now because of the light, the spectrum of the UV lights, or something to do with the sun. There's all these weird little things. Do we have all those genes inside of us ready to meet that problem? And if they should edit out the wrong things, will we not be ready to meet those problems? Do they know about these things? I don't believe somebody who's been alive for 40 years and studying for 10 that they have the power to change the entire human species for the better. As with all these scientists, though they build on each other's own knowledge and information, they can only be so much of what they are. And all of them, even if you're 60, even if you're 70, and you've been studying this, you've only been studying it for less than for less than a lifetime. And I'm sorry, but that's not very impressive, no matter how smart you are.
Yeah, in human terms, it's impressive. And once again, like we seem to frame everything in human terms, but for crying out loud, right? One human lifetime just isn't that much in the grand scheme, as much as we like to think it is. But yeah,
not really.
Yeah, exactly. Great stuff as always. Fantastic points. What else you got for us?
Just on that right there. I mean, I know that they're trying to build on their new and previous science, but it will never be enough. Even if they do it for 200 years, they will never perfect I don't know wisdom's not the right word, but the old mythos about the immortals, for example, the wind, has never ceased to blow, as far as we're aware, it's basically immortal. The same thing with the waters. They always go up and it comes right back down. They never disappear. It evaporates, it comes back up. These are all the elements of the entire universe. There's much more than that. But it knows. It knows everything. We are made up of those elements and we do not. And we have a certain amount of time on this planet to live our existence, and then supposedly our soul is immortal, according to some of those. That doesn't matter. But what I'm getting at is, on the physical level, if we mess up the vessels that we come into to experience this world, just that we cannot play this big, it's not an ace up the sleeve. We don't know the long-term outcome 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years from now of what this will do to the human species. And if we're meant to exist then 30,000 years from now, what this kind of fiddling right now, maybe it doesn't even matter. Hopefully it doesn't even, we can't even compete and it means nothing. And it just all, nature finds a way or something. But if it does, at least for the next 50 to 100 years, because it's just funny to think that we're thinking in such small terms, like the science itself is so new and it pretends like it knows everything. But we don't know. And I think that that's it doesn't mean we shouldn't look. Doesn't mean you can't look at it. No one's saying that it shouldn't be examined or looked at. But I wouldn't, even fiddling with the animals seems very inappropriate, doesn't it? I mean, to me personally, on a personal level. But
it does.
I don't know. I think working, yeah. It seems inappropriate. Maybe they can develop better medicine, I'm sorry, Mike. I'm just interrupting. I can't tell when you're going to talk, because on my end, it's a little delayed.
No, you're totally good. Go right ahead.
No, that's it. I'm going to hop off here and get some people their time on here and listen in. But it's always a good show. I'm so glad. I hope you guys had a good Memorial weekend and everything.
Thank you. You too. I appreciate the call. Always a pleasure. Jennifer here. Great call. And do check her out. She's got a YouTube channel called her name. Scroll down. It says follow Jennifer here. Appreciate the phone call.
Definitely.
There you go. Sorry, I see an awkward hang up. I'm a knucklehead. I appreciate the phone call. Great stuff from everybody. Thank you to Matt tonight, Jennifer, and Daryl, of course, for the amazing phone calls. I wanted to squeeze this in before we finish up. I see there Matt on the phone. Look at this. This is from WebMD, and this is why this disability activist fears CRISPR. And here you go. This is, again, all the links are down below in the description. Look at this. Rebecca Coakley's opinion of the gene editing technology CRISPR can be distilled into one word. Quote, "It's eugenics," she says, referring to the pseudoscientific movement inspired by Darwin's theory of natural selection and embraced by Nazi Germany and others to weed out, quote, "undesirable traits or even whole races and ethnicities." Coakley is the daughter of two parents who have achondroplasia, the most common form of dwarfism. From one of them, Coakley inherited a glitched version of a gene called fibroblast growth factor 3, FGFR3, which helps turn cartilage into bone needed for growth. Coakley, too, was born with achondroplasia. So were two of her children, 3 generations who live with dwarfism. Now, look, this is part of the problem, and this is why we need to talk about this. Because, so are you saying that these people are defective, right? Defective. Do you think that by again editing and changing these things, right? What if you had changed them before any of this took place, right? And you see what I'm saying, right? Suddenly, the definition of what that means is very, very pertinent to the conversation. Now, listen to this. This is from, these are the jokes going around and then the propaganda that sits behind this. Listen to this. This is John Oliver, and I want you guys to hear this before we finish up here. This is John Oliver talking about CRISPR.
That's fantastic. And he's right. It is a miracle. Except when you think about it, it's actually not. It's science, which I'd argue is actually better and more convenient than a miracle, because you don't have to spend the next 2,000 years worshipping the scientists. You can just be like, thanks.
Oh, you see? Oh, look how convenient that is, right? So you don't have to spend the next 2,000 years worshipping the scientists. Oh, you don't, you say. Interesting take there, John Oliver. Which, I like him. He's funny. but he is OMG a propagandist extraordinaire. That guy, and isn't that the worst of them, right? The propagandists that are funny, that are entertaining, that are interesting, right? Those are the propagandists to be wary of. I like him. I think he's funny. However, all right, now it gets worse. Listen to this. Speaking, and this is what I was going to tell Jennifer. When she's right, when you're on the phone, Discord's a little more crisp because you get like real time. The phone has like a little bit of a delay because it has to go through. Anyway, it's complicated on the audio routing here, but so it's a little bit delay. I interrupted Jennifer, and I wanted to tell her this. Speaking of changing animals, and I was going to say near and dear to your heart, Jennifer. I know she's got dogs. Is listen to what John Oliver says regarding what they've done with gene editing, CRISPR, and dogs. Listen to this.
And while that is a truly amazing story, for the most part, applications of gene editing have been confined to experiments on plants and animals, where the results have been striking, if often a little weird.
Researchers at this lab used CRISPR to isolate and manipulate the beagle's muscle, or myostatin gene, making these the most muscular beagles in the world.
Okay. All right. So you might think it's strange that scientists made jacked, sexy beagles, but did you ever even consider that the scientists were lady beagles? Change your preconceptions about what a scientist can be.
You catch that? You catch that? Like, we've all seen Marvel Comics, right? We've all heard of the Incredible Hulk, right? So literally, with CRISPR, they made jacked beagles, right? They're like, oh, these beagles, they just change, bam, like boom, boom, a little CRISPR editing, and now these muscular beagles, right? Think about that. It's funny. It's funny when the guy says it, right? Oh, think about the scientists. They might be, female beagles. They're into jacked, sexy beagles. Ha ha, that's really funny, right? It's really funny until it's not. Until it's not funny at all. And then you're like, wait, what? Why? Like, why would you do that? And you know the answer to that. I know the answer to that. To see if they could. That's why they did that. Come on now. You see where we're at with this. And this is why I think this is important to talk about, because there's a lot of stuff going on out there that people have no idea it's going on. And it's sick. It's sick. And then this is the point, right? Again, back to the idea of this scientist from Yale who works with CRISPR and is an expert on this, saying the fear is this stuff gets out in the wild, and people start breeding with these new genes, these genetically modified organisms, right? And then they start doing the bunny dance, and well, now we have generation on generation on generation that you can't take back, that you cannot take back. And that's my take on this. As always, right? I'm not the arbiter of truth, but I think just thinking past one human life cycle, this becomes incredibly, incredibly dangerous. And I think, like many things, I'm not going to eschew a technology entirely because it's a mistake. However, right, when you're talking about worshiping doctors or not, and just saying, well, thank you. You don't have to worship doctors for 2,000 years because of this. Oh, yeah? What if they gene edit you and that becomes the case? I don't know. You tell me. As we finish, I don't know. I don't have any answers. I just would love to talk about the stuff. As we finish, you guys know the drill. If you're listening to us on the Fringe FM, stay tuned for Joe Roop Lighting the Void. If you're listening to us on any other platform, including the podcast feed, stay tuned for a third hour of Troubled Minds. And as we finish, you decide. It's up to you. And also, be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our Troubled Minds to yours, have a great night. All right, you see? Like, it doesn't even take that much to paint a very dark picture of where this can lead. And not only that, you have leading people in the field saying, oh, by the way, this CRISPR shit could get very dangerous very quickly. And so to me, right, once you say that, I'm like, hey, hold on. Let's not Let's not do this then. Like, what are we talking? Let's slow the fuck down and let's think about what we're doing here. And if we're going to do this to vegetables and shit, why don't we keep them in a laboratory for like 10 years and make the people that made them eat them first, right? This is what I'm saying. Not make them, force them at gunpoint. Well, you made it, you eat it, right? Hey, you first, right? You see what I'm saying? We skipped all that shit. We skipped it. We just ran it to production, put it out. So again, if they're doing this in China now, imagine what we know about CRISPR babies. What we know. But what about what we don't know? You tell me. I don't know. Still talking about this. 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link, troubleminds.org. The Robert says, the super rich despise us, we unwashed, useless eaters, and have no interest in doing anything good for us, but will convince us that malevolent science and technology is the only way to improve our lives. And there you go. There you go. 2-minute break. More Trouble Minds coming up. Don't go anywhere. We got going to go back to Matt in Colorado and your calls as well. Third hour's for you. Looking to hear from you. 702-957-1037. One more maybe juice for me. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. More Trouble Minds on the way. All right, good enough. 2 minutes-ish, some or other. This is Trouble Minds. I'm Michael Strange. We're talking about CRISPR tonight. We're talking about not just CRISPR, of course, but what about the consequences? The consequences of playing God. And we talk about this in terms of transhumanism. We talk about this in terms of all kinds of other things, okay? But this is probably the most pressing because this isn't talking about putting a chip in your heads, okay? This is talking about, again, back to this Daily Mail article, Frankenfoods, the gene-edited Frankenfoods that could be on the supermarket shelves in the UK as soon as next year. Next year. So we're not talking about all the Neuralinks in people's heads next year. We're talking about clinical trials of that, right? So, hey, if you're talking about the most pressing thing and something that if it does get, quote, into the wild and people start passing on genes and whatnot, you can't pass on a Neuralink, okay? It has to be installed. Okay, yet. That's a terrifying thought. All right? But in this case, if you do gene edit people, right, this CRISPR stuff, you can pass on these inherited genes. You can pass them on. And, well, we don't know if you can yet. And that's the thing. Are we missing something? So shouldn't we be extremely careful and not allow this, period? For, I don't know how long. I don't want to call for a complete ban because I am not a science denier as much as people might want to, use that against me and be like, I know it, this guy. No. Because science is good. We owe to science the scientific process, not science as an institution. You see, it's very, very different. We do owe it to the scientific process many of the things that allow us to do what we're doing today. And I recognize that, okay? I really do. But then on the next level, if this gets out into the wild, like this guy said, and we don't know what we don't know yet, this could be a huge problem. I can hear your thoughts, 702-957-1037. And there we go. Let's see. All right. Okay, let's do it. Let's go to thanks for being patient, my friend. Matt in Colorado. Welcome back to Trouble Minds. What is going on, my man? Test. If you're there. Like I said, phone line, a little bit of weird delay. Sorry again to Jennifer for that. What's going on? Test 1 2. Matt, are you there? I hit the right buttons. It wasn't me this time. Matt in the cave. Matt in the cave. Are you there? Test 1 2. Matt in the cave. I think they got him, guys. I think somebody found his. He had to brag about the coax cable going 2.5 miles into that cave. See how long it takes sometimes. Matt in Colorado, are you there? Matt, test 1 2 1 2. Okay, it could be a bad call back. I'll put you right back on. I won't make you wait. Give me a call right back. He was very, very patient. He waited over 30 minutes there, so he's calling right back, so we'll get him on the line in a sec. All right, so looking to hear from you guys. What do you think? Frankenfoods? This should be fine, right? This should be fine. There's no problem here. Frankenfoods. right? And this is the point, right? Again, I'm going to play this clip just so you hear exactly what we're talking about. This is from the guy at Yale. Again, this individual by the name of, Dr. What's his name? Dr. Greg Licolai, right? Listen to this. This is what he said regarding the actual problems here. I see you, Matt, going to go right to you.
One of the biggest risks of CRISPR is what's called gene drive or genetic drive. What that means is that because you're actually manipulating genes, and those genes get incorporated into the genome, into the encyclopedia basically that sits within cells, potentially those genes can then be transferred on to other organisms. And once they're transferred on to other organisms, once they become part of the cycle, then those genes are in the environment. That's probably the biggest fear of CRISPR, that humans manipulating the genetic code, and those manipulations get passed on generation to generation to generation.
Okay, you see? Coming from a guy that works in this stuff. We don't know what we don't know. So how much of this should we be tinkering with? That's the question tonight. 702-957-1037. Matt in Colorado, did they catch you? Did they find you? Did they trace the coax cord back to the cave? And are you in custody, my friend? You're on Troubled Minds.
I am no longer in custody. Mike, can you hear me? Test one.
I hear you. I hear you this time. What's up, my man? Welcome back.
Well, not too much. I dropped like a bit of a question, a bit of a riddle at the beginning of my first call, and that was perhaps what is the most powerful type or category of thought that you can have, and second question, why? And I wanted you and your listeners to contemplate that before I gave what is my answer to that. So I wondered, did you have a moment? I know you're busy. You're running the show, but did you have a moment? What do you think is the most powerful type or category of thought?
I'm not sure how we're measuring. I mean, to me, just the most basic premise is an idea, period. Because, right, an idea could be, something carried over from the past, modified as, a word of mouth, or even an idea that hasn't been conceived of yet. Just the idea, the most basic idea itself to me. So, I mean, short of saying thought itself, like, I'm not sure exactly what you mean category-wise, but that what seems the most pertinent to me.
Well, okay, so, and I don't mean to quiz you. It's just a thought provoker, which is actually part of the answer. But, so we have different, I came up with this concept, and I came from dealing with people on Facebook, that people have, like, sometimes opinions, and sometimes they have beliefs, and sometimes they have facts or statistics or information, and sometimes they have, things that are wisdom. But what I realized was there's different types of thought. Thoughts occur in our brains, but they're not all the same type of thought. They're not all in the same category. So you understand a little better what I'm saying? And so in terms of like powerful or helpful thoughts, the answer to my question is, this is just my opinion, the most powerful, perhaps the most powerful type of thought or category of thought is a question. And the answer to the second part, why, which is actually another question, is because it stimulates you to think. It stimulates you to come up with an answer, to think for yourself, to ponder, to wonder, instead of regurgitating what you think you know or what you were told, right? And that's what your show is all about. It's about asking questions. It's about pondering. It's about having discussions. It's about having, communication where it's like, oh, I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's wonder about it together. In college, my philosophy textbook was called Philosophy, the Art of Wondering, So that's the answer to my riddle or question that I put forth. And the answer to the question is perhaps one of the most powerful types of thoughts is, or categories of thought is questions themselves.
I love it.
They make us think.
Yeah, I think
They free our mind.
You guys, you'll get a kick out of this. I actually failed philosophy in college. I didn't take it again. I took something else. There's a long story behind that. I was working two jobs, and in college, you know how it is, right? And so I was like, oh God. It was the summertime. It was a summer class, and so I'm not going to elaborate, but I was distracted, and so I've literally failed the class. I didn't take it again, but I think it's hilarious that, like, in like you said, sort of these questions and the things we talk about on the show are basically philosophy, but it was also one of those classes where it was less about discussion and sort of thought-provoking stuff and more about, this guy said this in, 1850, and so, we're going to quiz you on who said what in 1850, you know what I mean? So it was like literally the most boring type of philosophy. It was like memorize these facts and anyway, but there's my philosophy
right,
course.
More like the history version of philosophy instead of, but that's why I appreciated my philosophy book. It was, focused on, so, that's why I appreciate your show. I think that's why your listeners appreciate your show. I think that's why it's valuable for everyone to question, because when you question, it causes you to, the minute you ask somebody a question, their mind starts turning. It starts working. It starts into action. And, we can drive our cars to work and not really think at all consciously. We can drive on autopilot. We can be unconscious so much of our day, so much of our life. But to think consciously, to think actively, and that's what questions do for us, is they help us to do that. They motivate, they almost force us to do that. If I ask you a question, your mind's going to turn into gear and kick in and be like, I got to come up with an answer. But anyways, yeah, I just wanted to say that's what that thing was. In terms of, I had said in my call-in before you played that guy, the CRISPR guy, I had said that the comment about letting the genie out of the bottle. And, once you do that, the genie's out of the bottle. And then you played his other comment after my call where he was like, oh, well, the concern is this could get out into the population and then there might be incurable diseases and, whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly the concern. And some other concerns, and Jennifer kind of went into this, you went into this, is like, it's like the come from is like, is there something broken with nature? Is there something broken with people that you all think you have to fix? I mean, what kind of shitheads are you that you think you got to go in and fix nature or God's creation or people and that you can do better when you don't even understand what, all the supposed junk DNA, which they've now come out with articles going, oh, maybe this isn't junk DNA. It's like, yeah, it's just stuff you don't understand, right? And that's what Jennifer was talking about. And you were talking about, oh, okay, what about 3 generations later? What about 5,000 years later? Where it's like, no, this wasn't junk DNA. You edited out something that we needed to adapt to, coronal mass ejections and super amounts of UVC, radiation that's coming through, and y'all cut it out. And, at the next level, you said a comment about eugenics, and I think that's part of the program too. And I think at the next level, Jennifer, she always picks up where I'm taking it to and says it so beautifully and so wonderfully and says it in a different way, and that's what's so wonderful about Jennifer. But where she was talking about what they really want to do, she was talking about Bill Gates, is to be able to edit out the God gene, right? And so if you want to take this to a conspiracy level type thing, is like they want to get rid of that God gene, the ability to connect with consciousness, they want to make everybody a damn robot, and that ties into other topics of how they're trying to make people into robots. Like you said, yeah, okay, you can put the thing on the back of the head, but everybody's got to opt into that or do that. But this stuff is scarier because, you know, who knows? You know, they're putting stuff in tomatoes and food supplies, you know, one day and doing eugenics and okay, you won't have a kid that's a dwarf or has some, you know, encephalitis or, you know, whatever one day, and then, you know, 50 years or from now or 100 years from now, it's like, well, what was really in that is we have no ability to connect with our higher mind. We have no ability to connect with our higher self. It shuts down your conscious. It shuts down your pineal gland. And this was some nefarious, horrible plan that they cooked up. And Jennifer even alluded to maybe these ideas are being fed to them. You know, by what I had called the other night, the forces of opposition, you know, so taking the elevator up, it's like, man, this is just scary, fucked up shit. I'm sorry to say, and I'm glad it's the third hour and I can swear, but this is some fucked up shit.
It is.
And these are some crazy Atlantean souls that go back to the Atlantean days, if you want to believe in reincarnation. And they were into cloning back then, and they had high technology back then, and that's how they destroyed Atlantis. And these are the same kind of retards that don't believe in the spirit, they don't believe in the soul, they don't believe in the consciousness, they don't believe in God, and they're just all technology, science. And it's just like, man, you people are so messed up. That's not what humanity is about. That's not what nature's about. That's not what people are about. And they're trying. I don't know on what level they're conscious of it, but it's like a nefarious plot to destroy that which people truly are. I don't know a better way to say it. They want to disconnect. They want to separate. They want to bring all that stuff on. And I think they're doing it on multiple levels. They're doing it in multiple ways. And I said the other night, they're bringing it all on in a hurry. And I think they're bringing it on in a hurry because they're scared and because things are progressing. There is like disclosure. There are paranormal things happening. There are expansions of consciousness happening. People are waking up, and the forces of opposition, they're scared shitless. And even the powers that be, the 1%, they're afraid of losing control. It's like this sort of wrestling match. It's this sort of battle that's going on, and like right now it's really kind of an intense time. And it's like they're stepping up their game, but you know what? The other side, the white pieces on the chessboard that's taking place, they and we're stepping up our game too. So, you know, bring it on. But it's all good.
Amen. Matt, I got to cut you off, bro. We got calls behind you. You're the best. I hate to cut you off because you can go all day long, but we got to show the love. I appreciate the phone call. I appreciate the enthusiasm. I love how you're super into this stuff and you can talk about all of it. Thank you so much, man. Always a pleasure.
No problem. Thanks for the time.
Have a great night. There you go. Matt in Colorado, a good friend of ours, and he's all over it. He knows what's going on. I think he's in tune with a lot of things, and he made a lot of fantastic points. What do you guys think? Like I said, it's not up to me, it's up to you. It's your reality. I'll handle mine, you handle yours. 702-957-1037. Kelly, thanks for being patient with me and being patient with Matt. Go right ahead. You're on Troubled Minds. What do you think, my friend?
Good evening, man. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. You sound great. You sound great, Kelly. That's that Discord magic. What's going on, brother?
So, yeah, you kind of based on this, I've been listening to this, and I research a lot of different stuff, which kind of lead me into this type of rabbit hole. But it's a good topic to talk about tonight. But yeah, for me, man, I you know me, I'm not too much of a doom and gloom guy, but this is something from the shit that I researched and the rabbit holes again that led me to this. This is nothing from what I've got so far. It's nothing good because number one, you got to look at the people who are running these biotech companies that are doing this type of research. Their parents be family. This is going to be a generational thing. This is
your internet's freaking out.
Maybe because they're trying to cut me off here, but what? Can you hear me better?
Yeah, better. Thank you.
Okay, so what this is, man, is and it's right. It's just like you mentioned right before you got off the air it's eugenics. It all it is pure eugenics, man. Because if there can, number one, those type of, I would say those type of people, but before back in the 20s, there was at times where there was like how would you say it? I guess there was groups, right? And they even have like certain office buildings and stuff like that. There were eugenics groups here in the United States. They're actually worldwide, but it's what they call the 1%ers or whatever you want to call them. Some people want to call them elites. I'm far from that, right? I don't go even they don't even get that, that name. But anyway, the point is where I'm getting at was how I got down into this was all about like with GMO, right? That's where it all starts out, and then you have CRISPR that goes in with the human genome, with the DNA, right? So they're all in the genomes and the genes. That's why I keep saying that everything that from the beginning of the time, from the other stuff I researched, with the Sumerian, culture, where that whole first talk about what human gene splicing was way back then, right? But getting into some of this stuff, right? It was kind of weird, man, because most of it started with the GMOs, right? And it's true, everything that you're going to consume is going to be passed down because all that stuff is gene editing. It's not just the food for the food itself. It's for the, once you consume it, it's going to change our DNA. I mean, they've done tests on rats and stuff like that. I have like tons of pictures for this. This is something that's kind of true and dear heart to me because, I'm all against GMO and all this alteration of foods or even plant life to, try to, they say it's for insects and stuff. But if, I see it as a reverse. If insects are not eating it, why would you? Why would you consume it if they're not consuming it? I mean, that's the whole natural order of the planet, right? So if they're gene splicing, this is they're eradicating. They're not just it's not just for it's for races for it's like a race thing first. It's going to be a race, but then even within their own race, they're going to be even eliminating stuff. It's just they want to eliminate a certain gene pool, right? Now these people, it just seems to me that you can go either two ways with it. That they're demented people. They lost their humanity, or you could even say that they're not even part of this planetary system, right? They're or you would call them like type aliens or whatnot. But they can go. Again, like I said, this one goes in all kinds of different directions. But they've been doing this shit for years. People. I don't know if people kind of realize that. This goes back to like even World War II, and after the fall of Germany and Japan. They've been doing experiments. We've known about it. We've got their doctors. They actually we did with the whole paperclip, Operation Paperclip. We folded all these people in. They're not just talking about just the rocket, systems that we got. Suppose we went to the moon and stuff like that. But we had other doctors and other scientists that they were playing with some of this medical stuff and they're not nice. I'm telling you, some of the experiments that if you research some of that stuff that Japanese were doing and actually the Germans, some of the biotechs that they were doing. I mean, some of this, because they were getting into like germ warfare and all that stuff. It goes all the way down into botany. With plant life, the fruit they produce, all that stuff. Why would you want to even change some of that if it's all natural? I mean, at one time it was all food. Now all this stuff is like it's food-like products. But they've been doing that stuff with animals. They've been experimenting on some of this stuff. For example, like cows, right? Have you ever heard of those? It's called cannulated cows. They have like those portholes that they surgically put a porthole on the side of them where they could, the purpose of that allows them to access the rumen of the cow. And what it does is, so you can get into certain parts of the stomachs because the cow's got, more than one stomach. And it's for scientific. They say it's for scientific, but you got to get down into it. It's all about, they're trying to alter even the genomes of the cows, right? The type of stuff like that. And then, with even the potatoes, the only certain things, I could see that, it's not anything helping the people, because it's not really. I mean, like, for instance, the potato, okay? For the thing about with potato, even the natural potato, they found, it's actually, French fries and all that stuff. It doesn't matter how you prepare the potato. The potato has an enzyme in it where if you add heat to it, it becomes a carcinogen. And it's really bad for the body. So, they said mashed potatoes, baked potatoes. But if you fry them, it's actually even the worst. Like the French fries, I try to, I don't want to, hurt anybody's feelings on that. I mean, I like, French fries too. But after eating some of that stuff, man, yeah, it becomes a heavy carcinogen, potatoes, because of the starch within it. That's what they're trying to change, But who knows, down the whole long term, we're playing with stuff that we shouldn't even be allowing out into society, right? That's the whole point where, it comes back down all the way down to the tunnel at the very bottom is eugenics. They're just, like, for example, I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist because a lot of this stuff is all, you can find it where it's, it's all true, it's just all the things that happened back in, 2020. You know what I mean? You have Bill Gates. I'm going to bring him up because his foundation owns a company it's a biotech company called CRISPR'd. And it was actually at the time when he had it with his company, what's interesting, the guy who's running it, this doctor or scientist he had, running it for him was Dr. Fauci. But the thing about it is with all that stuff, right, is that if they can't get you, I believe they're going to either do it with vax or, with doing biotech within food. Because if you look at what Bill Gates doing now too, he's buying up millions and millions of acres of farmland, right? And he's all about that whole GMO type stuff, man. And and it's not just gonna kill you instantly. They're gonna go through generations trying to eliminate, and then it's if it's gonna be passed down through your genes, that's where you're gonna have like they say family problems with like heart issues, livers, kidneys. That's just going to be passed down. You got, deformations. A lot of that stuff you never really seen too much of it. I mean, you've heard of it, because, obviously not every gene is supposed to, intermix. You're going to have, they say just like, the negative blood type. If the mother was a negative blood type person, and she had she got pregnant by a positive, and the baby just happens to have the blood of a positive, right? The mother will try to kill the fetus. So, some of that type stuff, like with all that collection of DNAs these companies that are doing, I think it's just a collection of, I don't know if you should be doing this. Because, again, you got to look at the hearts of the people who run in these companies, these biotechs, because Bill Gates Sr., his dad was a known eugenics, right? And, Bill Gates, too, he became a billionaire through company, building computers. What is he doing messing around with, biotech companies and stuff like that where, people looking at him like, he's some kind of, he didn't go to the university for being a doctor. But yet he's out there giving all this information on stuff he has no clue about. Just because he's a billionaire and owns these companies You know, I put two and two together. This is, you know, to me, this is a very dark hole, and it's, you know, surprising. People need to be very aware, because they're not. He's even talking about now in lab grown meat, that, you know, he suggests that everybody eats lab grown meat instead of just, you know. And I don't really even eat cow anymore anyway. You know, that type of red meat. I'm more, you know, we're into more. Try to go, you know, if we're gonna eat meat, it's gonna be like, you know, buffalo, you know, or, you know, sheep. Yeah, I don't know how far they could, you know, any of these farm animals, they've been messing around with, just like the plants, you know. And you know, it's weird too. They're supposed to be saying that these things are better, these GMO plants, but yet, you know, they're got to be sprayed with all these chemicals. You know, even the farmers can't even go out there with like a week once they spray all that stuff. So, I mean, you know, and a lot of stuff that people saying, you know, with the gluten free and stuff like that, it's not just a lot of their finding is not just, you know, it's. People never had that before. It's because of all the chemicals they're spraying on this stuff that the bodies are now, you know, our bodies are not even supposed to be eating any of that shit. You know, it's all poison.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gets into the fruit, you know, it gets into whatever produces, you know, so, you know, here we are.
Yeah, it's like Matt was saying too. He's like, how come, you know, we used to eat like crazy, like wheat when we were young, and it was fine, everything's fine, and now everybody's got a freaking gluten problem. Like you said, put two and two together. Why the fuck do you think? Like he knows, I know, you know. It's like, because guess what? It wasn't the same as it was when we were kids, right? It's changed. That's changed. Not the people have changed. What we're eating has changed. And here, check this out. This is another one to throw into the mix, right? We're talking about maybe kicking CRISPR down the line, right? Back to that, what the doctor said, who's actually a biotech entrepreneur, this guy, right? So not only is he a doctor at Yale, lectures at Yale, but he's a biotech entrepreneur, just like you described about wink, wink, Bill Gates. But listen to this. If you kick like genetic problems down the line, right? Sometimes you wouldn't know. In this case, look, we got this from the New York Post. This is from today. Sperm donor fathered 15 kids without telling moms he has genetic IQ disease, right? So what happens if he never fessed up, right? This just gets kicked out into the wild, into the chain of the reproduction chain. And you see, like, this guy's like, you know, 15 kids, right? Without telling them. And this is exactly the same sort of shit. This is exactly it, right? So what about those 15 kids? They grow up, they have kids, they have kids, they have kids. I mean, shit, man, five generations down the line, 15 kids is no joke. That turns into hundreds or thousands of people, right? I mean, this is the thing. If he didn't say anything, and this, I get it's two very different things. But what I'm saying is, if it gets out and this dude never said anything, that would be very much just like CRISPR babies, right? Like, if something happens and they don't know about it or didn't say anything about it and it gets out into the wild, here we go. Eugenics, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, basically, that's exactly what it is. I mean, so for me, once I started looking at some of this stuff, right, I'm like, man, this is, you know, why would we want to, you know, have obviously the GMO food that they were producing and feeding these rats. These rats were growing big, humongous tumors. And, you know, this was they've been, you know, so, because in court, you know, they had to have some kind of, you know, at least a long-term progression of, you know, of somebody eating something. So they had to wait, and which was kind of messed up because, you know, they already had this type of stuff in society, these type of foods, right? Because if you get, you know, those stickers that are on foods and stuff, I'll put it in Discord. I don't know if anybody else seen them, but they, you know, they have the number systems on stuff. They have what they have, like, you know, which ones are what they, you know, that are GMO or conventional, what they call conventional. Conventional produce are just, you know, it's regular grown stuff, but they actually add, you know, it's being sprayed for insects. So you got to have, you know, all the fruits and stuff, or whatever's being sprayed is consuming all that stuff, you know, because it's on the outer skin, you know, it's going to absorb it all. Or then you have what, you know, all natural, you know, that what they're claiming, which is it's regular fucking food, but, you know, they're making it hard for you to even, you know, get the real food. And if it is, you know, that's why the shit's so cheap. You know, a burger's like a fucking, you can get two of them for $5, $10, you know, a whole meal deal and all that other shit. And then you go get a tomato that's, or supposed to be organic and it's $5. That's why people complain about it. But, again, back in my time, when I was growing up, even my mom had a garden, man. Everywhere we moved, we always had a garden. There was one place where it was a nice, man. We had like 7 cherry trees, 2 apple trees, a big ass garden, peach tree. We were renting out for a while, but I mean, that was a perfect place. That's where we always ate fresh like that. So, I mean, like I said, people, again, that's how they want, they're trying to drive society into that direction where, you just get food from, you're relying all this food on them. I mean, look, for example, like this whole, I don't really call it food, but look at, for example, this, the baby foods, that for, the shortage, supposedly shortage on that, they had no lack of baby food, just prime examples of, a lot of export. You can't have too much export. Yes, I like to have, try different foods from around the world, but who knows if, people's bodies are not supposed to know that, or not supposed to, can't handle some of that stuff. And I'll give you an example. The reason why I come some of this was there was a guy, his name was Dr. Sooo, right? He's the one that, he wasn't like a medical doctor, but he was into organic foods and living like the old style from Africa and like all these ancient down in South America and stuff. And he was curing people with diseases with some of the stuff he called, it's called amirite, but which is actually it's a cure iron, boost your iron in your blood. It's liquid gold for your blood, right? And anything that most diseases come up with, if you look at it, most people are what? They're, they're iron deficiency, they're anemic. And the reason for that is genes, is, your body, the type of food that, nowadays where people are putting inside of them, your body's not supposed to have any of that shit. And a lot of people are, they get these issues, right? But anyway, for him, he's the one that he was actually, they arrested him, they sent him to jail, he fought against the FDA. He won actually, and the only one that ever won against the FDA in the New York Supreme Court. And the reason, one of the reasons, he said there was some interviews I was watching about, the people were asking him, so like, what should he do to win against this, FDA and the Supreme Court? And he was saying, well, most of the stuff was, you agree with him, and this is the thing where, people, they were saying that, the FDA was saying that he shouldn't be allowed to give that type of stuff that he was producing from, most of it was like from roots and stuff, it's medicine, it's pure medicine, but it's all plant life, right? And he was like, yeah, I agree with him that I should probably shouldn't do it. And then the judge was asking him, well, why would you say that? And he's like, because it tells you right there that the FDA knows what is known as called gene food consistency. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No,
but gene food.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Gene food consistency, it's like, okay, if you look at it in the animal life, it's like basically like this. You wouldn't give a whale bear food, right? Or a gorilla. You wouldn't give a gorilla bear food or even vice versa, because a gorilla eats plants, right? It doesn't eat meat, and a bear eats meat. It doesn't eat, it's a carnivore, and it eats meat. It doesn't eat plant life, right? So that's why some animals, they already know that they don't eat that stuff. That's how he actually won, is because of gene food consistency and telling you what the plant, the body is, what is. Some people, like, for example, like Africans, right? The Africans are not, they're known to be not dairy or like meat and stuff like that, right? From the animal, because they're, dairy messes them up and stuff, right?
Lactose intolerant. Lactose intolerant is what's called, yeah.
Yeah, so they're lactose. But even the beef itself, the enzyme in itself, most people don't really know that too. That's why it's so hard to digest beef, because there's an enzyme in it that takes the body forever to digest. So that's why it stays in your small and bigger intestines. It actually does. People say you feel, you full. You think when you're feeling full, it's not because you're full in your stomach. It's because you're actually inflaming the insides of your bodies because it's overworking trying to digest that red meat. But anyway, Yeah, so and there was some one like with the another one that for like the Caucasian human, right? They produce a more of a what was it? I can't remember the chemical, but when that chemical heats up, it actually hardens up, right? Within the body. I think it was a phosphorus, right? They produce a lot of phosphorus, and when it heats up, it gets hardened in the body, so it actually major medical problems within it. So that's what he said. When he told the judge that the FDA is telling us that they understand what gene food consistency is. So by that, telling you the FDA doesn't work for mankind. That they work for companies that are paying them. It's all about the almighty dollar. If we really look at it, you know what I mean? Because the whole thing where it's all lies about saying that America can't produce enough food to feed America. Hell, we feed the world. The export of some of the stuff that we have, it's an overabundant. That even like types of corn and stuff like that. But nowadays, a lot of companies or a lot of countries out there, they're rejecting all this GMO because they throughout, it's been maybe, like I said, it takes like, a few years, like 10 years, they're finding these complications of all these people having, of all these, genetically modified, foods, and it's never been good for the human species because we don't even know long terms. When I look at this stuff, it almost kind of reminds me of that movie, I Am Legend, where these people, she supposedly found a cure for cancers, but yet, it actually was killing people, turning them into zombies and shit. So who knows what these people, what it could happen if we're allowing this stuff to be sent out. I mean, I'm not gonna that's the major part of the bad, but if I look at it on the good side, right, you might still, some people might have disagreements on some of this stuff, but on a scientific level, you're gonna have. We have to know what's the it's just the human mind, I would say, to know, or even the modification, since we got technology now and learning about genes, the whole genome pool, kind of like what Mike was talking about or Matt was talking about, the whole they call junk DNA, which it isn't. We just don't have no clue about it. But again, we have to tinker around with that stuff. I mean, maybe we shouldn't. Or we should, but keep it in a closed, enclosed, where, some of the stuff, and just to have the knowledge of, finding out what would happen, so let's not go down that road. Okay, maybe this helped us. But, again, who knows if we're thinking that we're helping us in the long run, but generations down the line, why mess with, what we call Mother Nature of the planet, the ecosystem, what's going on with human and in the planet life system, we're obviously, if you keep messing with it, man, so far it doesn't look so good, man. And with CRISPR, I mean, that's just another GMO on human beings. So exactly. I don't know, man.
It's sick. It's sick. The rabbit holes are sick. Hang tight, Kelly. Joe's been waiting for a long time, like almost 20 minutes, like you. So if you got time, hang tight. We'll get back to you. You okay with that?
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, stay right there. We're going to go to Joe in Florida, and then we'll go right back to you and also Daryl. So he was literally, I was watching the call. It was like 15 minutes, 16 minutes. I'm like, okay, we got to go to this 17 minutes, and then it dropped. I was like, shit. I was just about to pick up the call, but he just called back. So let's go to Joe in Florida. Thanks for being patient. All of you guys, thanks for sharing the stage here and being patient with each other and letting each other make great points. Thank you very much. Joe in Florida, you're on Troubled Minds. Go right ahead, my friend.
You read my news article, and I got to get to bed because I got to get to the sperm bank first thing tomorrow morning.
That was you, huh?
But I'm pumped. Terrible joke. Except, it'll be the genius IQ gene that they'll get.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't hear the whole show. I heard it on and off. But I just asked my kid tonight because he's got Crohn's. Like, if you could get CRISPR edited, what would you do? And he told me no way. Because if it was the year 2100, maybe I would, he said. He'd rather take the biologic. A couple of things, because I wrote some notes and let somebody else go, but let's say in the year 2100, there's open source code. People could do CRISPR I mean, from my understanding, is CRISPR could be a simple lab process. So what happens if it wasn't just kept to private companies? If it was open source, where everybody could check everybody's data? You know, if we do get to a point where there's a supercomputer, which I don't even think we need, because there's things being engineered right now. We see biologics and all kinds of medicines that suppress the immune system or suppress a certain gene, okay? You know, going all over the board here, I just pulled up an article now. We're always being gene edited by viruses in the outside environment. You know, it just came out in the last couple of years. People that got a lot of strep throat when they were kids have a higher incidency rate of like certain bipolar or paranoid disorders. You can look that up. The argument I got is maybe instead of calling it the God gene, like one of the callers said, because I do have a belief in something, but maybe we should call it the paranoia gene. Might be better. Because, you know, having a belief and all is good, but having a belief that makes you so extreme that one culture might blow themselves up for it, and another culture inside this country might just lie to their congregation to get a lot of money to get certain things passed and ram certain things down other people's throats. How about we edit that out? Right? I live in Florida, right? But we know that whatever you want to call it, it's getting hotter every year. Okay? What happens if they can make a simple little injection that gets rid of, you know, that you may not have to worry about skin cancer so much, allowing you to work outside and enjoy things? You know, playing devil's advocate. I understand these things can go horribly wrong, and they do go horribly wrong. We see the example of the mice. But at some point in time, if China is going to make their people smarter in math than they probably already are, somebody else is going to do it. Somebody else is going to do it. So where does that leave us? Diversity is our strength. Hey, some people believe that, some people don't. There's always going to be a race to make a better person. Last episode of Picard that I saw, I'm going to give it away, but one of the characters there opens up a book, and in the book it clearly says the Khan Initiative, which, Michael, I know you know Star Trek lore. Those were the eugenics wars that took place on the planet. But it was pretty neat to see that, and even in that Gene Roddenberry war, the planet does go through that. And I guess everything that you look at, you know, if I look at the way Gene Roddenberry says it and the way we're all kind of agreeing to it, it would probably be used, maybe not for great evil, even though I do think it would be used for great evil. I think there would be a lot of mistakes and a lot of problems before, either we cut out genetic manipulation or it's mastered and used in such a way to improve people. Maybe not here on the planet, but maybe people that are going off-world or for certain missions or to go underwater. I don't know. I'm not the one to write the laws, but we're all talking about the downside because we are basically, I guess, in human nature. But I'm sure that there's some of us out there on this station, on this fine channel with these fine listeners that would say, why couldn't we maybe help somebody out? Not make a superhuman, not do this, but you know what? If this kid's going to have MS or this one's going to have rheumatoid arthritis, why can't we just put a little fix in there and be done with it? You know, I'd have to believe there's some ethical people in this world that would do that, along with any other subject that we talk about.
Yeah.
You know, from AI to all of these things.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think the problem is it's not all about ethics. It's about what we don't know, right? And that's the thing. So it's like it's again the butterfly effect or a chaos theory, right? Again, you know, like you don't know. You change one thing and you think you're doing something good, but then who knows what kind of ripple effect it kind of sends literally into the gene pool itself, like literally of the entirety of humanity. That's the scary part. Like even to throw out evil people aside, and evil people are enough to keep you up at night anyway, but then the things we don't know about what we don't know becomes a whole other can of worms. You combine the two And then I don't know why anybody gets sleep at night.
So who knows if all the grays we see, and we talked about that at Stargate, but who knows if whatever those people see or contactees see, maybe that definitely is us from the future. Maybe we can't travel to another planet. Maybe we could just do a little bend in time and come back because we genetically modified ourselves to be so smart that something else breaks. And guess what? Now we've got to come back to pick on us, to pick on our past selves to save the future. Who the heck knows? So, interesting conversation. Science will rage ahead like it always does, and the rest of us will be left to deal with the results, I guess. However, I would like to get rid of the paranoia gene. That would be a nice one.
That would be a nice one. I'm not sure. I think it's like the ego. It's probably there for a reason, Joe. It's probably there for a reason.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. I think when I say paranoia, I mean, I don't want people knocking on my door, giving me magazines and telling me to go join the religion. I'm just fine where I'm at.
Gotcha.
That's what I mean.
Gotcha.
So maybe not genetic modification. Maybe just a sign that says no solicitation.
I've got one of those, and it only works half the time. It only works half the time.
Have a good night. So, all right. I'm going to see if I can get some genes to get my endowments a little bit better, so my wife doesn't complain about that at my age.
There you go.
I'll leave you with that dirty joke.
Yeah, you're the best. You're the best, Joe. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. That's Joe in Florida, longtime friend of the show, longtime friend of mine. I don't know, right? And I think there's a lot to think about here. It is. It goes back to some really, really dark places, and these really dark places. I hinted at it last time we were talking about transhumanism, but I mean, you got to just come out and say it. It's eugenics. At some point, that's really what it is, and we're gonna be hemming and hawing, and it's an interesting thing about that too, regarding academics and how everybody sort of wants to make judgment calls about other people's condition, whatever that condition is, right? Because you're not as smart as them, right? You're not as learned as them. You're not as whatever, right? And so there's this guy, I'm not going to say his name, you can probably find him if you go look. He streams on Twitch, and he's a PhD in philosophy. He teaches philosophy. Okay, and he streams on Twitch. He plays like a video game and talks philosophy. And I went, I probably said this once or twice on the stream in brief, but it's super interesting that I went and was just talking to the guy and picking his brain in the chat one night, and within like 30 or 40 minutes, like the conversation went to fucking eugenics. And I was like, I mean, we were talking about like him, because he's got a group of buddies that are there with him, and in his Discord, and he's got his crew, and they're all learned people, and they're all super smart and all the rest of that. But I mean, how quickly the conversation goes from like just random talking philosophy in general terms to like making judgment calls about how useful people may or may not be. And he didn't say that specifically his words, but the implication was heavy, and that it was talking about people with Down syndrome, and talking about it's like, wait, and my first thought when this came, I was like, bro, like, first off, who the fuck are you or anybody else to tell somebody else what a meaningful life is? And that's the thing that pisses me off the most about that, because we start to have, what you deem an quote intelligent conversation about eugenics. No, fuck off, bro. That's no. And that's why I'm like, no, look, no, sorry, I draw the line there. But yeah, it's just like, come on now. That's ridiculous, because you see exactly what sort of slippery slope that becomes. That's exactly what Kelly was saying. That's exactly what Joe was saying, and what Matt was saying. It's exactly what Daryl was saying earlier. It's what Jennifer was saying. Like, literally every single thing tonight it points in a particular direction, and that particular direction is a very ugly place. And there we go. What was I going to say? I got that. Fuck it. Kelly, thanks for being patient. Thanks again, guys, for sharing the airwaves with each other. I appreciate it. Lots of great people that have been part of this for a long time, and hopefully on and on into the millennia. Kelly, go ahead. What else you got, my friend?
I just forgot to actually bring up one point on the doctor that you were talking that they had the clips on. He was bringing up sickle cell.
Yes,
sickle cell, and That's usually happens within the black community, and it's from Africa, right? What actually it is, that's an actual natural mutation, and what it was is from when they took all the Africans, the slaves, and they moved them to when they came here to the United States, a lot of them they started getting sickle cell and anemia, and what it is a natural thing of a lack of oxygen, right? Because their bodies weren't used to being in high elevation from where they were at, on the flatter plains. But you bring, so their bodies is, it's a natural mutation. So I don't know why it was kind of weird that he kind of, brought that up. But it's weird when that's what I'm saying. Like when they start looking at some of that stuff and into the whole the gene pool, man. Yeah, man, it's. I don't know, man. For me, there's some stuff I can't say obviously on the radio, even off the radio. It's just, but man, because again, the whole eugenics program type shit, man. That shit really pisses me off. And if you really look at it, some people say it's a conspiracy. When we talk about this, bringing the whole gene pool in, within the whole GMO, which is actually generally modified organism. But if you look at it, humans and plant life, the reason why it's easier to do it that way, we share a lot of genomes with plants, because obviously, we're an animal of this planet too, so it's easier. For me, when I look at that shit, I'm like, man, they're trying to get that shit within the foods we eat. Not only if you don't want to eat the mass-produced junk food that they have on the shelves, and if you want to even in vegetables, that's and a lot of it is where a lot of these vegetables, it's easier to get it in is where the vegetables or the fruits that that hold a lot of water, for example tomatoes or lettuce, those type of plants, that's usually just mostly water, and that's the scary part, man. That's why. I'm always a real advocate about even trying to get once we get our own place, man, I'm gonna grow my own food, man, and I want to get enough land to where I can at least produce and share with people that can't afford groceries, that they could come to my farm and at least pick up whatever vegetables. I ain't gonna do dairy or nothing, but vegetables and stuff like that. I kind of want to do that, I mean, you see a lot of these other states and, in smaller towns where they're having gardens, and I was stationed over in Maryland. There was one neighborhood I was in where I was renting the house at. They had a neighborhood garden where people grow, you had a pretty good sized little lot, but, it was either you grow for yourself or people, they would just do food exchanges, they were, obviously they were there for years. So one plot would grow just one type of vegetable, another one. You could tell where it was a community thing. And that's great, man. That's where I believe where it should go, we should be going back to instead of this, trying to always fast food. People act like they ain't got no time. I mean, if you just take a few minutes, then dinner doesn't take that long to cook, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, people should just take care of themselves and think about some of that stuff because, you just put, just add it all together. I mean, obviously these 1%ers are not looking out for any of the good of our human race. That's an obvious, and I don't understand how people kind of just reflect on, look at them as, put them on some kind of a pedestal, and I just don't get it, man. Either they're brainwashed or they just don't get it yet because, some of this stuff, it's a lot of research, man, and some people don't really, want to do that type of stuff. They just, assume that whatever's put out there is going to be good. It's obviously at the grocery store, right? It looks fresh. It's not dying or anything, but I don't know, man. It's dangerous, man. Tomatoes and shit like that. The whole ain't supposed to be on shelves for 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Bread is, supposed to mold. It's you see those things where people that, I don't know if you see them on out there, or those McDonald's meals and shit. The bread doesn't mold, the meat doesn't rot. It doesn't produce any maggots or nothing. The shit just frozen in time. And that should tell you. know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's the same thing too. You throw it out and you leave it on the sidewalk, and like even the critters don't eat it. Like you said, if they're not eating it, that's telling you something. We shouldn't be eating that shit either. Absolutely, you're the best, Kelly. I appreciate you being patient. Like I said, hanging in there, and as always, great stuff. Great stuff. What else you got for us, my man? We got. We'll go to Daryl too, just to make sure. She usually just kind of hangs out and listens, but I want to make sure if we have anything to get back to her. And I gotta call out Robert for his tip. He sent a nice tip over on Rockfin as well. That's what I forgot, actually. See, I always forget the Robert. I'm sorry, Robert. But what else you got for us, my man?
That is it, man. I just want to let everybody know. I mean, like I said, that rabbit hole goes into different directions, and it's, like I said, you gotta, that's why I started paying more attention to like the food industries and stuff like that. Who's buying out who? Because like Bayer bought out. One of the main companies that were doing GMO. So like the company Bayer that you would think, back when I was growing up was like Bayer aspirins and shit. That company right there has been buying out all kinds of type of companies. They're like, these are all conglomerating together, and you gotta, and then you look at the people running these things, who owns them, and what they're, what have they been doing out there within society? Are they giving back, or are they just, what they call them philanthropists, but they're actually, that's a kind of affront to me, like Bill Gates is the bigger one, man. That man should not even be able to doing what he's doing, you know what I mean? And people thinking that man, that's just his wickedness, man. To me, if I looking at that stuff on, from a distance or even close up, it doesn't matter, man. Even under a microscope, evil is evil, and some of these people need to, I don't know, man. It just, I don't know. For me, I just want to end it off as, people need to just take care of themselves, and, what I mean? Eat, know what you eat and what you're putting in your mouth.
Amen. Amen to that, bro. Because nobody else is looking after you. Like I always say, right? Like algorithm says too. Mike in Colorado, he says, "Hey, control your mind or somebody else will." It's the same thing. Control your body or somebody else will. You're the best, Kelly. Always great. Tell my show we said hello, and appreciate you very much. Thanks for hanging out with us. Let's go to so real quick. Shout out to Robert over on Rockfin and Tam Bam as well. Thank you guys for the tips. I appreciate it very much. Like I said, one day when crypto rebounds, it's going to turn into a pile of money. You'll see one day. One day it'll be way more than that. So thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. You guys know I love you very much, and thank you for sharing the love back. I appreciate it so much. Let's go to let's see. We got let's go to Daryl. Daryl in New York. You've been quiet for an awful long time. Like I said, just let me know. Just type to me or. Just go ahead and barge your way in and say you got something to say. If you got something to say, I just want to make sure I didn't leave you hanging there. Daryl in New York, are you there?
No problem, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. I think it's a great show. The great calls, everybody. I was thinking, what are we going to say to our grandchildren? When I was your age, this was how we used to eat tomatoes. Or when I was your age, we had a natural, like heirloom, tomatoes, or we had babies that had defects or whatever. We didn't have perfect children. We had imperfect people that thought for themselves, that weren't aggressive, that have different personalities, that weren't all alike, I'm going to say things like that, When I was your age,
exactly.
Gas was 50 cents a gallon. Then it was $1 a gallon, And it cost 10 cents to make a phone call, things like that. Just saying, things are changing. And we're going to be reminiscing over how it used to be,
100%. In one lifetime, things have changed like so incredibly crazy just in the last 50 years. Like the world is literally flipped upside down. It's nuts. Robert's comment too. He left a comment with this tip. He said, "Do the ultra rich eat the same genetically altered GMO food we peasants are forced to?" And that's a hell of a question. I'll bet you Bill Gates does not eat McDonald's. I'll bet you he does not.
I'm sure he doesn't.
I'll bet you he doesn't. Yep.
But it doesn't look like he's on a great diet either. I mean, he's got like man boobs and he's fat. He's not in the best shape. He's not an example. I mean, really.
Did you see the tweet that Elon Musk put out about the pregnant boy with like the blue shirt in the stomach? And he said, if you want to lose a boner, look at this. And it was like a picture of Bill Gates that looked almost exactly like the little.
Oh my God! Did he really do that?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it looks like anything goes at this point. I just posted something. It was like all the ticks we have to learn about. The deer tick, this tick, and then the lunatic, which is Bill Gates.
Oh yeah, I saw that. The lunatic, exactly. Yeah, I saw that. That's hilarious. I'll try and pull up that meme and I'll share it in the Discord a little bit later. Which, if you guys haven't joined the Discord, now's the perfect time because troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link and there's your tease of the Elon Musk trolling. I'll share that in the Discord. And there you go. I appreciate Daryl. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks, Matt and everybody else for chiming in. Let's go to Jennifer one more time and then let's get the hell out of here. Jennifer, you're on Troubled Minds. Go right ahead.
Hey, it is late. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was like, I don't know.
You're good. You're good. Hey, no, if you got more to say, people want to listen. You're the best. You know it. You know it. Go right ahead.
Well, I just have this last thought on it because the eugenics thing, and throughout the entirety of history, the entirety of modern history, it has been to do. There's been a lot of wars fought. There have been many people sacrificed, many children, and many people all over the planet. There have been whole races and tribes all over the planet extinguished for eugenics. And it's interesting that after all this time of the entire human race, of the entire planet, and all of the cultures, and every human on the planet bringing what they bring when they come to life and exist in the world. And it's interesting to think about today that there is still this eugenics, which is what this is. And it's true. And at least it seems that way. It comes across as being, it's to help this, it's to help that. But it's really about them trying to make a perfect this or a perfect that. And it's a hard topic when you think about it this way, but I think it has to be broached. That every human being, in every way that they are, is good for each other. And we are all, in every way, in every fault and everything that is wrong, even in our illnesses and everything else, our shortcomings as they're perceived by some group that thinks that there's a perfection. We are all, even in our imperfections, always our best already, without any of this. I mean, even if there are faults with us, even if there are illnesses that they seemingly can't cure, but continue to make pharmaceutical medications for, and make profit from, and that they continue to create illnesses that were not there before in their search for this extreme hierarchy. It's hard to ignore that they're exploiting humanity, that there is something exploiting humanity for its own gains, possibly for power or for money. But when you start to dig into the actual genome of the human species, regardless of who it's actually for, it's probably not for the masses. That's true. And it never has been. Because when you consider the idea of eugenics itself, it's always to put and get away from one aspect and to uphold another. But I think we shouldn't ignore this any more than we've ignored any of the wars in the past that were concerned with eugenics. In the Rig Vedas and every other war that's ever been fought in the ancient past, in the ancient world, there was an undertone of eugenics involved. And going forth, I think we're more than that. You know, people have said that we were greater in the past, and maybe that is true, but this is what we have become, and this is what we are now. And we should embrace it rather than try to, once again, revise it and edit it to make it better. For once, and in the entire history of the world, it seems to us, we are all the different every aspect of every type of I'm just saying, I think it's a step back and not a step forward. And that's what I wanted to end it with, that I think that that's, as far as my opinion on it, that we have seen this before. We've seen it many times. And I think we're beyond this by now, you know.
You would hope so.
As far as trying to improve upon the perfection, you know.
Yeah, meddling, too much playing God. The hubris of humans, it's an incredible thing, and always makes me smack my forehead like, how could this go wrong? Let's just file this under how this could go wrong. That's so crazy. Great point to leave it on. I appreciate you very much, Jennifer. She's got a YouTube channel. Check it out. Links in the description. Thanks for the phone call. Always a pleasure.
Have a good night.
You too. Appreciate the call. And there you go. It's as easy as that, right? Easy as that. Troubled Minds in the books Tuesday night. Thanks again for being patient with me. I took the day off yesterday. I was telling Matt in Colorado previously, just hey, sometimes I just want to veg and not do a damn thing. And I did that yesterday. I barbecued. We had tacos and watched some Stranger Things, and it was a good time. So thanks for being patient with me as I just took a well-needed day off. And so there we go. I smell spring is in the air, of course, because now as we get closer and closer to summer, it's actually not that hot in Vegas, if you can believe that. It's like 85 degrees with a light breeze. It's usually 110 by now, so I can't complain at all. But let's say some things maybe afoot, maybe things about to change with Troubled Minds. So I don't know what's exactly going to go down, but we'll have some things to talk about coming soon. So if you're into this and you're into the format and you're into all the things, well, stay tuned, because I don't know how much I can say just yet, but there's some things that are probably changing, and that's good. It's good. Change is good, because you stay the same and things stay the same. You know what I'm saying? So thanks again for being part of this. Thanks for doing this. Anybody got a quick outro real quick, or a quick anything? Kelly, let's go to you real quick, and then go to Daryl, and let's wrap this MFR up. Roll it. All right, I got music. Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh man, I just want to say great show tonight, and some people, or the audience out there, should probably take a really deep look at this, man, and see what it's about. You know what I mean? And just take care of yourselves out there, man, and. Again, it's most of the stuff that a lot of issues that are out there is, due to the foods that we eat, and the people who are producing these types of foods, man, just, kind of be aware of, what's out there. We're going to be going on vacation for a few days, so I don't know if we'll probably be still listening, in the evening time. So, but other than that, you guys have a good evening, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Travel safe, my friend. There you go. All right. Thank you, Kelly. Daryl, we got 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I have a Margaret Mead quote that is a little new for us, that children must be taught how to think, not what to think. And absolutely remember that you are absolutely unique, just like everyone else. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Okay, those are the 3 quotes.
Indeed. And my little Margaret Mead always washes it down just a little bit better. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks to everybody that called in tonight. You guys know who you are. Thanks to everybody that didn't call in, the chatters out there. Thanks again to Robert and, of course, Tam Bam for the donations over on Rockfin. Appreciate that very much. The tips. And, look, we're going to keep doing this, guys. As always, you guys know you're invited to be on the show. If you have ideas for shows, just send them to me, troubledmindsradio@gmail.com. Join the Discord. Come say hi. Come meet all these amazing folks. So many of them are active over there on Discord. And like I said, these people are more amazing off the show, because they don't have me telling them when to talk and when not to talk, right? I try and be the best moderator I can, but nobody's perfect. And if you go meet them off the thing, there's no timelines or anything else. Just come say hi, and you'll find out these people are more amazing than you ever would have considered. So come say troubleminds.org. Click the Discord. It's free if you have an internet connection. There you go. All right, let's get the hell out of here. As we finish, if you want to help the show, there are a number of ways. Number 1, you can sub up on Patreon. Number 2, Rockfin, of course. You can sub up directly there. That's probably the best best value. It's $10 a month. You don't get just a premium Troubled Minds stuff on demand. You also get everything else on Rockfan. Again, like I always say, Abby Martin, you get Jimmy Dore, you get all kinds of big names. Sam Tripoli's over there. You get Crow 777. You get all kinds of stuff. That's the best way to do it. Another one would be to sub up on Twitch. That's probably the worst way if you want to spend money because they take half. But there's that. If you want to help the show and get some swag, troubledfans.com, and you get hats and shirts and whatnot over there. And if you don't want to spend money but you do love the show and you want to help, I understand. I get it. Just spread the word. Good old-fashioned word of mouth beats the algorithms, and we still have good old-fashioned word of mouth. And you can also just listen to the podcast feed. There are exactly 426 episodes on the podcast feed, growing every single day, and there's gold there. There's gold. There's so many good conversations about all kinds of things. So go check that out. And if you listen to an old podcast, whatever it is, whether it's Spotify or iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, it sends a couple cents my way. So pretty please do that, and that's how you can help. Easy peasy. Let's get the hell out as we end. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m., and it goes like this. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night. Now it's time to hell. Time to hell. Oh, it started with, as Jay New York said, it started with a wet pack of chihuahuas, and it ended with a wet pack of chihuahuas. Oh. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll catch you guys tomorrow night.